Chapter 1204. Puff. Spitting out another mouthful of blood, Qin Hao knelt on one knee and supported himself with his palms on the ground. His dragonized state was slowly dispelled. Fortunately, the dragon scales had offset the power of Xian Yuan Chemical's fist. His abdomen had only been injured by the Yuan Qi, but the injury was limited. As the tranquil water circulated through his meridians, the injury was almost healed. Essence Soul Realm warriors are indeed much stronger than ordinary warriors. Looking in the direction where Xian Yuan Chemical had escaped, Qin Hao withdrew his gaze. Escape? It was impossible to escape. His head had been smashed, and the red lotus fire qi had poured into his internal organs from a wound. Xian Yuan Chemical's divine soul had been annihilated the moment his head exploded. That headless body was a dead body. Later, he would find him and take off his top-grade wind leopard armor. At this time, Qin Hao looked at Brother Dog's battle group. Looking at the rampaging and brave F.A. Xiong, he smiled with satisfaction. F.A. Xiong didn't let him down. He had arrived in time. In the distance, the gray-clothed subordinate was about to launch the 10-meter-long shark with his harpoon. With a flash of white lightning, a bloody three-pointed spear head appeared in front of the gray-clothed subordinate's chest. He had been killed by F.A. Xiong with one shot. How could this be? The gray-clothed subordinate felt as if his body had been torn apart. His Yuan Qi suddenly scattered, and the 10-meter-long shark disappeared. Before dying, he turned his head with difficulty and saw a face as cold as Qin Hao's, with two strands of white hair floating in front of his forehead. The gray-clothed subordinate's eyes were full of doubts. Wasn't Qin Hao fighting with the eldest young master? Why did he sneak attack him? And where was the eldest young master? Plop! The gray-clothed subordinate fell to the ground and died. Before dying, he knew that the eldest young master had shamelessly run away. Oh my God, it's this damn thing again. When the skinny warriors saw F.A. Xiong, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He was so scared that he drilled into the soil and ran away. He didn't even have the courage to struggle and resist, leaving Yamazaki in a daze. A doppelganger? The skinny warrior didn't know what F.A. Xiong was, but it was definitely not a doppelganger, because the strength of its aura was exactly the same as Qin Hao's. Last time, he had almost died under F.A. Xiong's sword, with a shadow in his heart. It would be strange if he didn't run. Unfortunately, you won't be so lucky this time. Activate your eightfold domain. F.A. Xiong roared and stabbed his spear into the ground. A powerful crimson light quickly spread out from the spear, instantly catching up to the thin martial artist and trapping his earth escape technique. The thin martial artist felt as if he had bumped into a wall. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through the soil. He was extremely anxious underground. F.A. Xiong also walked over with a smile on his face. He inserted his big hand into the soil and grabbed the thin martial artist's neck, lifting him up. "Hero, please listen to me." Seeing this, Captain Yamazaki immediately knelt down. Before he could finish his words, he was burned to ashes by Brother Dog's most powerful breath. Then, the 20-meter giant dog's body shrunk back to its original form. Brother Dog walked to F.A. Xiong's side tiredly. Its gloomy eyes stared at the struggling, skinny warrior as it considered how to eat him. It wondered if it should add some chili and MSG. Impressive. Qin Hao walked over from afar and gave F.A. Xiong a thumbs up. The first time you used Uncle's Dragon Shadow Spear, you killed a level 9 Yuan Venerate. That was a good start. However, I'm very puzzled. Why did you last so long this time and still not disappear? That's because, bang! F.A. Xiong collapsed and turned into a tiny dragon spirit. It let out a sound of humiliation and reluctantly burrowed into Qin Hao's body. Sigh. Qin Hao shook his head and sighed. He really couldn't be cool for more than 3 seconds. However, at this moment, Qin Hao's movements were extremely fast. He took over F.A. Xiong's job and grabbed the thin martial artist's neck. "Hero, please listen to me. I was forced." The thin martial artist was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. His mind was racing as he tried to think of a way to fabricate a lie. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered with him. He exerted force with his palm and prepared to choke this person to death. Hero, please wait. When I was looking for Xinyuan chemical, I passed by an evil place and saw a cute little girl with 2 ponytails. She emitted a rainbow-colored radiance when she fought. However, she has been targeted by Ning Chao Fan, and the situation is not optimistic. The thin martial artist felt that death was approaching and tried his best to pry off Qin Hao's fingers as he spoke. Previously, he had seen and Qin Hao together at the Coiling Dragon Wonder. They should be a team. However, he wasn't sure if was important to Qin Hao or if they had formed a temporary team. At present, he could only try his best. As long as there was a chance of survival, the thin martial artist wasn't willing to let it go. Qin Hao was startled and quickly released his grip. He looked down at the monkey martial artist at his feet and said, "Where is she? If you dare lie to me." "I wouldn't dare. Everything I say is true. I swear to God." The thin martial artist cried. He instinctively wanted to turn into sand and escape. However, he found that the surrounding area was enveloped by a powerful force. His primordial spirit was suppressed by this strange force and could not be used. At this moment, the thin martial artist was truly in despair. "Tell me where that evil place is, and I will let you live." Qin Hao said, "All right, I will draw the terrain for you. I hope you will fulfill your promise." Seeing Qin Hao's anxious expression, the thin martial artist knew that he had made the right bet. The cute little girl with 2 ponytails was someone that the white-haired man cared about. Following that, the thin martial artist drew the terrain in detail according to his memory. Qin Hao scanned it seriously and remembered the last place had been seen. "Hero, to thank you for not killing me, I will give you a magical weapon." The thin martial artist took out a compass and respectfully handed it to Qin Hao to increase his chances of survival. "What is this?" Qin Hao took the compass and looked down. Although he could not understand it, he knew that it was a small toy made by a refiner. It is called the Yuan Qi Detection Compass. "Hero, you might have felt it. The pressure in this space is very strong, and there is a seal in the sky that prevents flight. A martial artist's mental strength cannot detect the aura of others. Only when both parties are close to each other can they sense each other. The Yuan Qi Detection Compass is different. It can accurately locate other martial artists. As long as you pour your Yuan Qi into it, it will show you the location of nearby martial artists and the distance between you and them. It is convenient for you to avoid other strong martial artists." The thin martial artist explained in detail as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. Qin Hao was attracted by the magical compass. This proved that the more valuable the thin martial artist was, the higher the chance of survival. With the Yuan Qi detection compass in your hand, you will be able to find the cute little girl in that evil place. Ha ha ha! Isn't it magical? Is it fun? It is very valuable. It was made by Master Gu of the Star Refining Tower in the Upperland City. I bought it at the auction and spent 2 million Xian crystals. Now, I'm giving it to you for free. A treasure and a hero are a perfect match. If there's nothing else, I will leave now." The thin martial artist said confidently and left with his head held high. He provided such important information and gave Qin Hao such a precious celestial device. Although the detection compass was worth less than 20,000 Xian crystals, it was actually very useful. After all, in the outside world, martial artists could clearly sense each other's Yuan Qi and lock onto each other with their minds. Therefore, the detection compass was despised by the martial artists of the southern region. They said that it was the most useless thing made by King Gu. However, this hidden dragon secret realm was very special. Even the thin martial artist did not expect that the detection compass would be so useful and help him avoid many dangers. Now, he gave it to Qin Hao, but he still felt sorry for it. Well, it is indeed magical and fun. Brother Dog, help him reach paradise early. Qin Hao waved his hand at Dog Spirit. 23. Education 123 Literature Network. Chapter 1205. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo, Studio the King of Evil, you untrustworthy bastard. The skinny man turned around and roared. Vital energy surged out of him as he prepared to fight to the death with Qin Hao. Boom! His roar disappeared in the flames as a powerful breath blasted toward him. His body, soul, and divine soul were all destroyed. Trustworthy? People like you don't deserve to talk about trustworthiness, Qin Hao said coldly as he stared at the black residue on the ground. He turned around and followed the direction where Xianyuan Chemical had run to find his headless body. Xianyuan Chemical's headless body ran very fast. In just a few seconds, it had run more than 10 miles. If it hadn't slipped on a pile of demonic beast feces, it might have run even further. Next, Qin Hao took off the top-grade wind leopard armor and threw it into the space ring. He then brought Brother Dog to the evil place that the skinny man had mentioned. The journey wasn't too far. With the route map provided by the skinny man, Qin Hao and the rest arrived at their destination in 1 day and 1 night. They didn't rest on the way. Looking around, they were surrounded by low mountains. The environment was rather dangerous. Among them, there was a mountain with a very strange shape. Although it wasn't very tall, only about 500 to 600 meters in length, it was like a round pillar. The top of it was shaped like a mushroom. It looked like something that had hardened. One evil place. It's not suitable for children. Why don't we destroy it? Qin Hao also pitied K-Er. He wondered how the pure K-Er felt when she saw this thing. Would it leave a scar? Then, as Brother Dog was drooling, Qin Hao swept a wave of vital energy at the pillar and shattered it. Roar! Roar! Brother Dog let out a dissatisfied roar as it frantically threw dirt at the ground with its paws. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered with it. He took out the large disc and prepared to search for K-Er's aura nearby. The skinny man explained the basic operation of a large disc. Qin Hao was a craftsman himself, so it wasn't difficult for him to use it. He gathered vital energy in his palms and injected it into the disc. The disc reacted. The surface of the disc suddenly turned pitch black, just like the middle of the night. The needle spun crazily in the pitch-black darkness. Wherever it passed, spots of light gradually appeared. The light of the spots of light varied in intensity and color. Qin Hao nodded. Presumably, the light spots on the surface represent the nearby warriors or the demonic beasts inside the secret realm. The orange light signified that a warrior's cultivation had reached the saint level. Red, king rank. Purple, venerable rank. The golden light spot was at the emperor's stage. Furthermore, the more intense the flickering of the light spot was, the stronger the martial artist was. What was even more amazing was that after the needle swept past, the disc was no longer pitch black. Forests, rivers, mountains, and so on appeared on top of the disc. Once Qin Hao's finger landed on a certain terrain, the environment of that area would be magnified, allowing Qin Hao to see it more clearly. Thus, it was convenient for him to use the terrain to avoid being hunted down by experts. I didn't expect Master Gu to have created such an ingenious auxiliary device. What a genius! Qin Hao praised wholeheartedly. He looked at the center of the disc, where there was an unusually dazzling red spot of light. It represented Qin Hao himself. The red spot of light that belonged to Qin Hao was exceptionally terrifying. It outshone many of the nearby purple spots of light. Qin Hao, who was at the king rank, actually had a more terrifying vitality than many venerable ranks. The big disc seemed to be extremely accurate. It accompanied Qin Hao to weaken or strengthen his own aura. The spots of light that belonged to him would correspondingly dim or suddenly strengthen. Holding Master Gu's big disc in his hand, it was more delicate and accurate than when a warrior released his own consciousness to sense the other party. What a pity! Qin Hao shook his head. Such an ingenious tool was spurned by the southern region warriors. It was a waste of King Gu's efforts and talent. But thinking about it carefully, it also had a certain flaw. Usually, powerful warriors who had practiced chi concealment techniques could change their powerful aura at any time. If they relied too much on the big disc, it would be easy to be misled by it. Thus, misjudging the enemy's cultivation level could be fatal. A tool is just a tool. It can only be used as a reference. The sharpness of the warrior's own body is the right way. Qin Hao nodded. Although the big disc had flaws, he couldn't help but admire King Gu's ability. Even in Qin Hao's previous life, he definitely couldn't create such an ingenious tool. If it was used on the battlefield, it would be the most outstanding scout. There was no need to send people to take risks to scout. As long as the generals sat in the tent, and each of them held a big disc, they would be able to understand the enemy's movements and deployment of troops. After all, at the moment of entering the battlefield, no one would be stupid enough to hide their cultivation level. I'll go back and have a chat with old Gu. I'll ask him to create more big disc for me. Also, I'll see if I can fill in its flaws and make it more accurate. Qin Hao made up his mind. Then, his fingers slid over the light spots one by one, magnifying them one by one. According to the attributes displayed on the disc, he analyzed which one was K-Er. K-Er's potential had been stimulated by the coiling dragon peak. Its cultivation level had reached the beginner stage of the 9th level venerable beast. The color it emitted was purple, and the intensity of the light should not be too intense. Orange, red, and occasionally 1 or 2 golden light spots were all eliminated by Qin Hao. He only looked at the purple light spots. On the big disc, there were more than 10 purple light spots. As Qin Hao moved, the number of light spots increased and decreased. It was actually very difficult to find the real K-Er. Qin Hao brought Brother Dog with him and ran to several places in a row to investigate secretly. However, they did not find K. Moreover, the deeper they went into the evil zone, the more mushroom-shaped pillars there were. The color of the pillars also became darker. Qin Hao broke them one by one, almost angering Brother Dog. Qin Hao was really curious why Brother Dog was so obsessed with that kind of thing. "Okay, little girl, where are you? Stop hiding." After spending an entire day, Qin Hao had almost searched all the purple light spots, but they were all not K-Er. He was getting more and more anxious. Could it be that K was killed by Ning Chao Fan? Damn it, Han, and the old demon are nowhere to be found. It wasn't easy to find some news about K-Er. If anything happens to her, how am I going to explain it to Han? Qin Hao squatted down and held his head with both hands. Roar, roar. Brother Dog's nose twitched. Suddenly, its body slanted and ran toward the forest not far away. It didn't even say anything and left Qin Hao where he was. "Brother Dog, wait for me." Qin Hao used the water-wind steps to chase after it. It was as if he had seen the light of dawn. Brother Dog was very excited. It must have found something. It could be a special treasure of a demonic beast like the spiritual beast fruit, or it could be K-Er herself. After all, demonic beasts had a very sensitive sense of smell. K-Er was the rainbow skylark, Xiao Han's mount. Since Brother Dog's nose was so sharp, Qin Hao felt that the chances of finding K-Er were very high. Following that, Qin Hao was disappointed. This was because in the forest, there was an even more magnificent, thicker, longer, and incomparably black mushroom-shaped pillar. It could be called the Evil King. After seeing this black pillar, Brother Dog's eyes widened. Its saliva flowed all over the ground. It couldn't wait to pounce on it and bite it off. "You're still in such a mood at a time like this." Qin Hao angrily slammed his palm down. Vital energy surged under his palm, and the sound of a dragon's roar could be heard. It viciously shattered the incomparably black, evil king. Which blind bastard dares to disturb me again? Do you want to die?" K-Er's angry voice could be heard as the sky was filled with debris. She nimbly emerged from behind the broken evil king and slammed her palm toward Qin Hao's face. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1206. Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Super Big Baby Qin Hao didn't even have the time to be happy before he was forced to defend himself. Bang! Their palms collided, and a violent gust of wind spread out from their palms. It swept through the trees within 100 meters, causing them to explode one by one. Good palm technique, Qin Hao praised. A powerful force came from his hand, and his body slid back more than 10 meters from K-Er's attack. He had to use his dragon power to block the attack. This attack was as heavy as 10,000 pounds, and it was as powerful as thunder. The palm technique was huge, and it was obvious that it was taught by Uncle Xiao. With the power of this palm, Ning Xiaofan and his subordinates in black would not be able to gain any advantage even if they attacked together. Qin Hao completely let go of his worries. Zung zung zung. Even though Qin Hao was pushed back more than 10 meters and forced to use his dragon power, Ke was not feeling well either. However, Ke was not in a good state either. She was shaken and was forced to take a few steps back. "Why are you here?" When she saw that it was Qin Hao, Ke was slightly shocked. Her little mouth then curled up as tears streamed down her cheeks. She opened her arms wide and threw herself into Qin Hao's embrace. Her hands wrapped tightly around Qin Hao's back as she burst into tears. "Boo-hoo. Qin Hao, you're such a bad guy. It's all your fault for collapsing Mount Panlong and sucking us all here. Boo-hoo, I want big sister, I want big sister." Gulp. Looking at the little girl who threw herself into his arms, Brother Dog looked at her enviously and swallowed his saliva. However, when he looked at his own fur, his face was filled with pain. When would he be able to transform into a human? Don't cry, don't cry." Qin Hao patted Ke-er's head. At this moment, it was as if he had found his family, and his heart was filled with warmth. "There are bad guys everywhere, and everyone wants to catch me. I'm bullied every day, but you and sister don't come looking for me. Woo-woo. Ke-er misses sister so much." Ke-er did not let go and hugged Qin Hao even tighter. She was afraid that this was a dream and that Qin Hao would fly away. She had transformed for 3 years. In human terms, she was only 7 or 8 years old. Even though she had matured early with Xiao Han, she was still a little girl. She had been living in the secret realm for a while. She had seen all kinds of translation and translation and translation and translation and translation those people. Translation and translation translation and translation and translation and translation. Translation Ke-er did translation and translation without thinking. In the end, translation and translation and those people. Translation, it is translation translation and translation. I, translation and translation and translation and translation translation. Translation translation and air as translation 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 as translation 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 as to translation and translation 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 to translation. However, Qin Hao believed that the people who would suffer in the end would definitely be those scum who had conspired against them. They were probably already deader than dead under Ke-er's palm. Translation. Me where, why can't I sense big sister's aura at all? I've flown to many places to look for her. Boo-hoo. Ke-er can't find her at all. Ke-er released Qin Hao and rubbed her teary eyes. I don't know where this is either. What? You can fly? Qin Hao bluffed. His expression was very surprised. There was a restriction in the sky, so he could not summon his origin wings to fly, but Ke-er could. Yes. Ke-er nodded and asked, "Can't you fly? You're too stupid." Qin Hao touched the top of his head and looked at Brother Dog. Brother Dog looked pained as he stared at the remaining half of the evil king on the ground. He was not in the mood to care about Qin Hao. Could it be because Ke-er is a bird? Qin Hao guessed. Martial artists could condense qi into wings, which was different from natural birds. If the restriction in the secret realm did not restrict the freedom of birds, then it would explain why Ke-er could fly. As he looked up, he saw a few large birds flying over the forest. Qin Hao heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his guess was right. Ke-er, you've been flying for so many days. Have you found the others? Qin Hao asked. No. Ke-er shook her head. She knew that Qin Hao was talking about the old demon and Ahe Huang. Uncle Wretched, Little Black, Little Yellow, and even my sister did not find anything. However, I have signed the highest level contract with my sister. If her life is in danger, I can sense it. My heart has been very calm these days, so my sister should be safe. That's good. Qin Hao's worry lessened. He had also signed a contract with the old demon. However, it was not a high-level contract, but the most wretched master-servant contract. No matter what kind of contract it was, They could sense each other's life force. The soul left behind by the old demon was very quiet, which meant that he was not in danger. As for the two ancient beast warriors, Ahei Huang, he could only pray that they were safe. By the way, I heard from a kind-hearted person yesterday that you were being harassed by Ning Chao Fan. So why were you hiding in the forest? Also, you were secretly hiding behind the evil king. I didn't hinder you, did I? Qin Hao asked carefully. Evil king. Ko was puzzled. She followed Qin Hao's gaze and saw the shattered, mushroom-shaped rock on the ground. She stomped her foot angrily. How is it evil? Why did you shatter it? There's moss here that I like to eat. There's a lot of it growing on the evil king. Do you know that I'm very hungry? I've been hungry for so many days, boo-hoo. Kaer felt very wronged. When Xiao Han was around, whatever she wanted to eat, her sister had it in her space ring. Every time they went shopping, Xiao Han would buy Kaer some good snacks. In the end, when they reached this mystic realm, the two of them were separated. Kaer had not eaten anything that she liked for a long time. Today, they finally found one of Kaer's favorite foods, the green moss, but Qin Hao had shattered the rock. Kaer's delicious food was ruined. Oh, I'm sorry. Qin Hao's face turned red, and he hurriedly apologized. It seemed that he had misunderstood and thought that something had happened between Kaer and the evil king. I don't care. You have to compensate me. Kaer stretched out her hand toward Qin Hao. She remembered very clearly that Qin Hao had also stored a lot of delicious food for the wretched big yellow dog. Although most of it was meat, she could not care less. Kaer was really hungry. Here is super invincible sausage. Qin Hao took out a sausage that he had bought on a boat and handed it to Kaer with a smile. He did not wait for Brother Dog to howl like a madman. He took out another sausage and tossed it to Brother Dog. So it's this good? Kaer caught it and took a big bite. Qin Hao suddenly shivered. He felt a chill run down his spine. He continued to ask, Where's Ning Chao Fan? Tell me, did he bully you? I'll go beat him up. You mean that guy with the scissors? I scared him away. Kaer took another bite of the sausage in her hand as she spoke proudly. Her little face was raised high. The skinny man had said that Ning Chao Fan had chased after Kaer, and he was not wrong. However, at that time, he had been in a hurry to find Xianyuan chemical and had not seen what had happened afterward. Kaer was a bird and could fly in the mystic realm. Ning Chao Fan and his black-robed subordinate had chased after her for a long time, wanting to get Kaer's peacock plume. In the end, they were so tired that they were gasping for breath. The two of them had almost died from exhaustion, but they could not even touch it. They could only watch with tears in their eyes as Kaer flew away. At that time, I saw many martial artists blocking Ning Chao Fan's path. They were very respectful and invited him to the eastern part of the forest. Furthermore, over the past few days, there have been frequent thunder and lightning in the east. There's an 80% chance that there's some kind of treasure. Kaer took the last bite of the sausage and extended her little hand toward Qin Hao. She had not eaten her fill yet. Ning Chao Fan had been unexpectedly blocked by others. This was also an important reason why he had given up on chasing after Kaer. No matter how difficult it was, he would not give up on the peacock plume so easily. Chapter 1207. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation inside a temple east. Qin Hao took out a sausage and gave it to Kaer. He then closed his eyes and concentrated. His consciousness turned into a dense spider web that flew toward the east. The elements in this mystic realm were very dense. Even Qin Hao's consciousness found it very difficult to penetrate it. However, he could faintly sense that there was a large amount of aura in the east. At that moment, Qin Hao took out the large probing disc again and channeled his yuan qi into it. Spots of light appeared on the pitch-black screen. The spots of light in the east were the most concentrated. Furthermore, the spots of light in the south, north, and west were rapidly moving toward the east. Kaer, it was right. Something big was happening there. What is this? It's like a starry sky. How beautiful. Kaer chewed on a sausage as she stared at the probing disc in Qin Hao's hand with her big, watery eyes. Her face was full of interest as she pointed at a spot of light with her finger. Buzz. A halo appeared on the disk as the image expanded rapidly and displayed a string of data. Target grade. Yuan venerate target grade. 3-star target origin soul. None analysis. Target's movements are too slow. Estimated to be lacking in agility. Also, their Yuan Qi is more vigorous than those of the same grade. Classified as a power-type warrior. Recommended not to engage in close combat. Harass and tire them out before defeating them. I'm so curious. Or stuffed the sausage into her mouth as if she had found a new toy. Then, a pair of greasy pistols grabbed Qin Hao's probing disc and started tapping it. East? What exactly could attract so many martialists? Qin Hao rubbed his chin and pondered. Based on the number of spots of light displayed on the disc, 80% of the martialists that had been sucked into the mystic realm were concentrated in the east. Ning Xiaofan had chased after K. And was unexpectedly blocked by someone. That group of martialists was very respectful. Qin Hao did not think that the other party was afraid of Ning Xiaofan. Most of the martialists that had been sucked into the mystic realm had the ability to step onto the 5th platform. There were also many Origin Soul realm martialists. The Ning family was just a young master of a branch family. It wasn't enough to scare talented martial artists. If they wanted to get rid of Ning Xiaofan, it would be very easy. However, the group of warriors did not do so. Instead, they respectfully invited him to the east side of the forest. It was obvious that they had encountered a thorny problem in the east, and it just so happened that Ning Xiaofan had the means to resolve it. He's a tool refiner, and he also knows formations and... Qin Hao nodded. If he hadn't guessed correctly, that brat had been invited by someone to break a formation. According to Kerr, thunder and lightning often appeared in the east, and it was even an omen of the arrival of a treasure. This was in line with Qin Hao's conjecture. The martial artist had found Ning Xiaofan to dissolve the array protecting the treasure. However, the master of the hidden dragon mystic realm was Emperor Yuan. With Ning Xiaofan's ability, there was an 80% chance of him cracking Emperor Yuan's array formation. K.Er, do you dare to follow brother-in-law and take a look? Qin Hao squatted down and looked at K.Er. K.Er had placed the disc on the ground and was playing with it happily. At this moment, she nodded without thinking and said, "And I think Big Sister should also be in the east. It's just that there are too many people there, so I don't dare to go there rashly. I'll listen to you for now." "Good girl." Qin Hao patted K.Er's head. "Aya, don't touch my head." K.Er slapped Qin Hao's hand away, picked up the disc, and skipped toward the east. From time to time, she would raise the disc above her head to block the sun. She was so happy that she looked like a fool. "You're just like Han, when she was young." Qin Hao smiled slightly, his eyes full of affection. He said in a deep voice, "Brother dog, roar." The dog spirit's body expanded and turned into a mighty lion. It turned around and leaped past Qin Hao. Qin Hao flipped onto the dog's back. When he passed by K.Er, he grabbed her waist and pressed her against Brother Dog's back as they ran toward the east, kicking up clouds of dust along the way. He did not know whether Han, and the old demon were in the east. Qin Hao could only take a gamble. Moreover, the treasure of the mystery realm had descended. It was not Qin Hao's style to watch someone else take it away. After all, this hidden dragon mystery realm was a place that even Li Wanji was fascinated by. Qin Hao wanted to see just how precious the treasures in the mystic realm were. Li Wanji, haha, or what should I call you, Spirit Emperor? Qin Hao laughed coldly in his heart. Although he had not met Li Wanji since entering the mystery realm, he could not sense Li Wanji's aura at all. However, Qin Hao had a feeling that the old demon was watching every movement of all the ancient martial art practitioners in the mystery realm. As long as he was forced to show himself, he would definitely be able to find Han and the old demon. The forest was very far from the location where the treasure had descended in the east. According to the detection disc, the distance was about a few thousand miles. Without being able to fly, who knew how long it would take them to walk? Luckily, Brother Dog was very strong and could run very fast. After running for half a day, Qin Hao decided to let Brother Dog rest. He fed Brother Dog more than 10 supreme-grade elixirs to recover its strength. There were many ancient martial art practitioners in front of them. It was very likely that the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword were there as well. Qin Hao was at an absolute disadvantage. He had to let Brother Dog maintain its strength in case of any accidents. After that, under Qin Hao's persuasion, Kei reluctantly took over Brother Dog's job. She transformed into a skylark and carried Qin Hao as they flew. The rainbow skylark had a noble bloodline and a strong self-esteem. It would not bow down to anyone other than its master. It would rather die than submit. Kei only allowed Qin Hao to climb onto her because of Xiao Han. It had to be said that riding Kei was very satisfying. Compared to riding a dog, it was a completely different experience. Kei's feathers were very soft and gave off a nice fragrance. Qin Hao looked at the blue sky and was so excited that he wanted to cheer. He looked down and saw that the mountains and rivers were passing by quickly. Brother Dog also wanted to experience it. However, when he threw it from a high altitude, Brother Dog let out the most desperate howl in its life. It was very sad and shrill. In the end, it had no choice but to retreat back into Qin Hao's space ring. Okay, let's land here. From afar, Qin Hao condensed his red lotus flaming eyes and saw the gathering place of the martial artists in front of him. He let land and then gave the thumbs up. It was really fast, much faster than a dog. Transformed into a human. She put her hands behind her back and raised her head proudly. As they got closer and she sensed a large number of human auras in front of them, she became a little nervous. She leaned close to Qin Hao's back and pulled on his clothes. Don't be afraid. I've already said that I won't let anyone hurt you in Little Han. Qin Hao's charming voice rang out, causing Kei's panicked heart to calm down inexplicably as she nodded her head. In front of them, there was a huge light shield that was 1,000 feet tall. It was stuck in the ground like an inverted eggshell. The light shield's surface flashed with a very strong power, causing the void to vibrate. No birds or beasts dared to come close within 1,000 miles. Inside the light shield, there seemed to be a huge ancient temple. Qin Hao couldn't see it clearly. At this moment, about 50 to 60 ancient martial art practitioners were gathered in front of the light shield. They were all frowning as if their fathers had died. Moreover, as Qin Hao expected, the Nanming coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword were both there. The moment he saw the two of them, Qin Hao's body trembled. He instinctively became extremely vigilant. His deep eyes quickly scanned the surrounding terrain to find the best escape route. Other things aside, just the peacock plume on Kei's body was enough for the two of them to kill her without holding back. Moreover, Qin Hao had absorbed the dragon spirit of Coiling Dragon Peak. This batch of ancient martial art practitioners who had stepped onto the fifth platform saw it most clearly. Please remember the domain name of this book. Nine Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Edition website. Chapter 1208. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, studio looking up at Qin Hao. The array door changes unpredictably. It rearranges itself every hour without any pattern. My mind power is unable to penetrate the 30 Big Dipper stars. What should I do? Among the crowd, Ning Chao Fan was sitting on the ground. He was surrounded by martial artists, and all of them were anxiously staring at him. It was as if he was the moon surrounded by stars. Ning Chao Fan was holding a branch in his hand and drawing something on the ground. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his face was full of worry. Young Master Ning, you have been sitting on the ground for 5 days and 5 nights. Is there still no progress? One of the martialists lowered his head and asked impatiently. In order to bring Ning Chao Fan over as soon as possible, he and the other 15 people had traveled day and night and used their yuan qi without any regard for the consequences. Today, the 16 martialists had finally recovered. However, Ning Chao Fan, whom they had placed high hopes on, still hadn't been able to open the array door after 5 days and 5 nights. This had greatly disappointed the martialists. You can scram if you can't wait. The subordinate in black glanced at the martialist who had spoken. "Oh, is that so? I would like to see if you have a right to make me scram." The martialist sneered as a purple light suddenly emitted from his back. A large, sharp sword appeared and hung high in the sky, causing everyone to retreat in fright. Essence Soul, Realm Martialist. The subordinate in black's face was distorted as he faced the large sword. Although he was a peak level 9 Yuan Venerate, his opponent was a rare Essence Soul Realm Martialist. His sword soul was so huge that anyone could imagine how terrifying its attack would be. Even though his cultivation base was 2 levels lower and he was only a level 7 Venerate, the subordinate in black would definitely be crushed in a fight. A mere slave dares to be so arrogant. If it weren't for Ning Chaofan's face, I would have taken your dog life with a single sword. The sword spirit martial artist snorted heavily and withdrew his origin spirit, scaring the black-clothed subordinate into taking 3 steps back. "Friend, if you still want the treasures in the array, you'd better be polite to my subordinate." Ning Chaofan stood up with a cold look in his eyes. Hee. With the support of his master, the subordinate in black regained his arrogance. He stared at the sword soul warrior with contempt, as if to say, "Only my young master knows about arrays here. You dog, don't be arrogant. What if I insist on being rude? Moreover, I want to cut down your slave right now. Ning Chaofan, what can you do to me?" The sword spirit martial artist couldn't help being enraged. He released his missing source spirit once again, causing his sword chi to become even more wild. "Why don't you try?" Ning Chaofan spread his legs, and purple smoke appeared behind him. A 10-meter-long pair of giant scissors appeared in the air and confronted the sword. "You really think you're better than everyone else? In this secret realm, the Ning family's experts won't be able to support you. Who do you think you are, Ning Chaofan? I don't want a treasure. I want your life." The sword soul martial artist couldn't bear it any longer. He formed a sword seal with his hands, and the large sword behind him whistled through the air, piercing towards Ning Chaofan's chest. "Do you think I'm afraid of you? Cut it from me." Ning Chaofan was also angry. He hated it when people used his family's matters. It was as if, without the Ning family, Ning Chaofan was just a dog fart. Filled with anger, he waved his arm, and the large scissors behind him split apart. With a kacha-kacha sound, the scissors cut towards the large sword. Bang! When the two sides' source spirits collided, a stalwart figure appeared out of thin air, carrying a giant black coffin on his shoulder. His aura was incomparably strong. The coffin-carrying man punched out. A powerful fist chi wreaked havoc, destroying both the large scissors and the large sword at the same time. So strong, a single punch repelled 2 soul essence martial artists. Everyone was shocked. Coffin-carrying man, what is the meaning of this? The sword soul martial artist's sore spirit was injured and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. The coffin-carrying man's eyes turned cold. He stretched out a hand, not allowing the other side to resist. He grabbed the sword soul martial artist's neck and raised him up. The scar at the corner of his eye twisted as he said in a cold voice, "This is what I mean. Before the array is broken, no one is allowed to touch Ning Chaofan. Otherwise, you're not giving me face, do you understand?" I'm sorry, I apologize to you." The sword soul martial artist's legs kicked wildly. He was about to suffocate. The other side didn't even use his source spirit, so he couldn't resist at all. This made him deeply aware of the huge gap between him and the coffin-carrying man, Peng. The coffin-carrying man threw away the sword soul martial artist like trash and said to Ning Chaofan, "And you've been studying a door for 5 days and 5 nights, but you haven't made any progress. I really don't know how the title of Golden Light City's #1 genius came about." The coffin-carrying man had a look of contempt, as if he was looking at a piece of trash. "You dare insult me?" Ning Chaofan's hands clenched tightly. The dignity of the Ning Wu royal family could not be trampled on. Even if the coffin-carrying man was strong, he would still have to pay the price. "Enough!" A loud shout stopped Ning Chaofan's impulse to attack. At this time, the old man with the broken sword who was sitting quietly in the corner slowly stood up and walked over. I hope that before the door to the array formation is opened, no one here will act rashly. Otherwise, you will be my enemy." These words were obviously directed at the coffin-carrying man, and the old man's sharp eyes fell on the coffin-carrying man. "Humph! Then I'll have to trouble you, old man, to tell Ning Chaofan to hurry up. My time is limited." The coffin-carrying man snorted and walked away with a huge black coffin. His mission was to kill Qin Hao, but he was inexplicably sucked into the secret territory. He had been looking for Qin Hao in the secret territory for 7 or 8 days, but there was no trace of him. If he didn't take out the treasure in the array, he was afraid that Qin Hao would leave this place. In that case, there was no way he could explain to the Li family of Bayo. Li Yaqi's identity was far superior to that of Ning Chaofan's trash. Li Yaqi was the son of the Emperor of Bayo. The coffin-carrying man thought that no matter how strong he was just an ant in front of the Emperor of Bayo. "Young Master Ning, I'll give you one more day. After one day, if you still can't open the array, don't blame the old man for being ruthless. I hope you remember what I said." The old man with the broken sword closed his eyes and walked away, sitting back in his original place. Ning Chaofan's face was covered in cold sweat at this time. He kept nodding at the old man with the broken sword, but he didn't have the courage to say no. Then, the onlookers dispersed one by one, leaving Ning Chaofan to ponder again on how to break the array. Otherwise, one day later, it would be the day of his death. "Young master, I'll cover for you. Let's escape." The subordinate in black said nervously. In this secret territory, the old man with the broken sword and the coffin-carrying man were undoubtedly 2 giants, and no one dared to provoke them. Escape? Do you think we can escape from the hands of 2 emperor-level masters? Ning Chaofan couldn't help but smile bitterly. At present, he was a fish on the chopping board. Just based on the heavy punch just now, it was obvious that the coffin-carrying man's cultivation had reached the royal level. Probably during this period, the coffin-carrying man had a fortuitous encounter in the secret territory. As for the old man with the broken sword, when he comprehended the peerless double dragon sword of the fire property, although Li Wanji only said the word royal, Ning Chaofan knew that the old man with the broken sword was already a royal level master, and his level was not low. His strength was above the coffin-carrying man's. In front of the 2 supermasters, they didn't even have the right to die, let alone escape. Sigh, I never thought that there would be a day where I, Ning Chaofan, would be forced into a life-and-death situation. Moreover, even if I died, my family members wouldn't know. Ning Chaofan looked up at the sky, feeling sad for himself. Suddenly, Qin Hao's cold face appeared in his mind. That face was envied by men, envied by women, and doted on by grandmothers. Moreover, no matter how great the blow was, that face was always calm and composed. What was even more hateful was that Qin Hao's speed of comprehending the coiling dragon wonder was much faster than Ning Chaofan's, who was a master of array formations and artifact forging. If Qin Hao was here, Ning Chaofan wouldn't be threatened. The old man with the broken sword and the vicious coffin-carrying man would definitely give the difficult task of breaking open the door to Qin Hao. To be honest, at this moment, Ning Chaofan wished that Qin Hao would come over and die for him. "Oh, young Master Ning, you're in a good mood. Are you looking up at the sun and thinking of home?" Suddenly, when Ning Chaofan looked up at the sky and sighed, Qin Hao's cold face looked over and blocked the sun above Ning Chaofan's head, giving him a warm smile. Please remember the domain name of this book, 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1209. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio, you have to pay for what you've done. Ning Chaofan jumped up in fright and let out a dreamy scream, thinking it was an illusion. He pinched his subordinate's thigh hard. When he heard the subordinate cry out in pain, he was sure that it wasn't an illusion. "It's really you." Ning Chaofan was overjoyed. White-haired man, the hateful person who absorbed the dragon spirit, caused the mountain to collapse, messed up the array, and dragged us into the mystic realm. Hand over the dragon's spirit. Buzz, 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 buzz. More than 50 martial artists attacked at the same time. Balls of yuan qi exploded, shaking the earth. It was a spectacular scene. Among the 50 balls of light, 10 martial artists had essence souls behind them. It was a luxurious lineup. Qin Hao could not help but smile bitterly. Fortunately, he was prepared before coming. Otherwise, these 10 essence soul martial artists would be enough to kill him. There was no need for the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword. Unfortunately, Qin Hao did not see the old demon and Han among the 50 martial artists. However, these martial artists did not care whether Qin Hao was prepared or not. They pounced on him like a pack of fierce wolves. The fastest one was undoubtedly the Southern Sea coffin-carrying man with a huge black coffin. Hand over the peacock plume, and I'll spare your life. The coffin-carrying man was like a ferocious tiger king hiding in a pack of wolves. He let out a deafening roar and threw a punch at Qin Hao. The shocking scene scared Kei so much that her face turned pale. Qin Hao stood quietly. Facing more than 40 powerful martial artists, 10 essence soul prodigies, and an invincible origin emperor coffin-carrying man, he seemed to be unafraid of death. He even closed his eyes and looked like he was ready to be killed. Just as Kei was feeling extremely anxious, she saw a figure standing in front of Qin Hao without any hesitation despite the murderous aura that filled the sky. It was Ning Chaofan. Ning Chaofan's unexpected action scared all the martial artists who had rushed forward, forcing them to retreat. Anyone could die here, except for Ning Chaofan. If he died, then no one would be able to break the array formation. Ning Chaofan, are you King tired of living? The coffin-carrying man had no choice but to throw out his fist. His yuan qi exploded in the distance, creating a smoking crater. Ning Chaofan smiled coldly and did not reply. At this moment, the old man with the broken sword walked over and stood in front of Qin Hao. He pointed at Qin Hao and said, "You can't kill these two people." "Why? Is he your father?" The coffin-carrying man roared. He believed that the broken sword elder most likely wanted to obtain the peacock plume, which was why he was protecting Qin Hao and Kei. He was clearly going against him. Although the old man with the broken sword was very strong, it didn't mean that the coffin bearers were really afraid of him. Even if he's not my father, he knows about arrays. Am I right, kid? The old man with the broken sword's face turned red. He wanted to kill the coffin-carrying man. At this moment, he stared at Qin Hao with a soul-stirring gaze. If Qin Hao dared to say no, he would definitely kill him in the next second. "Ah, old Mr. has sharp eyes. I know a little about arrays," Qin Hao said calmly. He had dared to stand out because he had expected this. With Ning Chaofan's eyesight, he could definitely tell that Qin Hao had learned about arrays after the secret battle on Coiling Dragon Peak. If he dared to let Qin Hao be killed, Ning Chaofan would not be able to escape death, because he couldn't break the array door. At this moment, Ning Chaofan's life was undoubtedly tied to Qin Hao. He was his only hope of survival. Aha, there's finally someone smart. With the old man with the broken sword coming to his rescue, Ning Chaofan felt a lot less pressure. He was really afraid that the group of idiots would kill Qin Hao. He's also an array master. Even though he has white hair, he looks around 20 years old. How strong can he be? Even young Master Ning couldn't break the array door. Young Master Ning has been studying arrays since he was young. He's been studying arrays for almost 30 years. During this time, he's been studying arrays for hundreds of years. If even he couldn't do anything, where did this white-haired guy get the courage to break the array? Everyone was discussing and doubting Qin Hao's ability. However, they didn't dare to make a move. Qin Hao was protected by the old man with a broken sword. Who would dare to offend him? In response to the doubts of the surrounding warriors, Qin Hao only smiled and looked at Ning Chaofan. "Brother, we had a misunderstanding on climbing Dragon Peak. I hope you won't hold a grudge against me and join forces with me to break the array. How about that?" Ning Chaofan took the initiative to speak and bowed respectfully. The other martial artists were immediately startled. They bowed and bowed. This was the continent's standard etiquette. It was the etiquette that a junior of a lower level would give to a senior of a higher cultivation. Generally speaking, warriors of the same generation or similar cultivation would only bow with their fists. Ning Chaofan bowed to Qin Hao, proving that his array skills weren't as good as Qin Hao's. Kid, if you're willing to let bygones be bygones and join forces with young Master Ning to break the array, the old man can give up the peacock plume and protect you and the little girl in the mystic realm. How about that? The old man with the broken sword also spoke with a pleading tone, shocking the warriors again. Good fellow, this kid seems to have some ability. Elder Broken Sword's tone is so tactful. He's just short of bowing to him. If he joins forces with young Master Ning, they might really be able to break the array door. The warriors were excited, as if they had seen the dawn of hope. Like hell you'd believe him. This old man is very bad. Qin, you'd better not foolishly believe his words. Kay, her stuck close to Qin Hao as she transmitted her voice to him. She even tugged at the corner of his shirt. Don't worry, I have my own plans. Qin Hao held K.O.'s small hand and gave her strength to reassure her. Then he said to the old man with the broken sword and Ning Chaofan, I can do it, but someone humiliated me time and time again on Coiling Dragon Peak. He said that I was a useless piece of trash who got lucky. Shouldn't he come out and apologize? Don't push your luck. I already said that I hope you can let bygones be bygones and even bow to me. Why do you have to bring up the past? Ning Chaofan was a little unhappy and gritted his teeth. I'm pushing my luck. If you were scolded by someone, is asking the person who scolded you to apologize considered pushing your luck? My request isn't too much, right? Qin Hao looked at the old man with the broken sword and continued. Moreover, I have a very bad habit. If someone doesn't apologize to me, I'll feel uneasy and my array skills will be limited. Young Master Ning, the righteous path is full of vicissitudes. Don't be too arrogant. Sooner or later, you'll have to pay for what you've done. If you're a man, apologize to him and show your sincerity. The old man with the broken sword said with a threatening look in his eyes. That's right, young Master Ning. It's just an apology. It's no big deal. If he scolded me, I would feel uncomfortable too. The white-haired brother's request isn't too much at all. The Ning family is the imperial family of the Emperor Wu Empire. Don't tell me young Master Ning doesn't have the magnanimity? That's too disappointing. The surrounding martial artists opened their mouths one after another. Most of them were dissatisfied with Ning Chaofan, especially the Sword Soul martial artists and their friends. Fine. Ning Chaofan clenched his fists so hard that they creaked. He raised his hand and slapped his own face, leaving a palm print. Are you satisfied now? Is this sincere enough? In response, Qin Hao frowned slightly and shook his head. Young Master Ning, one slap is the same as two slaps. Since you want to show your sincerity, why don't you show your sincerity even more fiercely? The old man with the broken sword chuckled and continued. It was actually quite interesting to watch someone slap themselves. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Edition. Chapter 1210. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio I No Dirty Tricks 2. Slap. Slap. Ning Chaofan raised his hand and slapped him twice more. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hateful expression could swallow Qin Hao whole. Are you satisfied this time? Qin Hao was stunned and shook his head again. Kid, don't go too far. The subordinate in black pointed at Qin Hao's face. However, he was stopped by Ning Chaofan. Following that, Ning Chaofan used both of his palms and slapped his face crazily. The sounds of his slaps were like a torrential downpour. Top fan, bottom fan, left fan, right fan, back of the hand, palm slap, palm slap. Ning Chaofan slapped himself several hundred times in a row. In the blink of an eye, he had beaten himself into a pig's head. The subordinate in black clenched his fists and was so ashamed that he wanted to crawl into a hole. They were a branch of the Ning Wu royal family. If this matter were spread, Ning Chaofan would be too ashamed to face anyone. His status in the family would plummet, and he might not even have a place to stand. If it was a light punishment, he would be severely punished by the city lord. If it was a heavy punishment, he might be stripped of his position as the eldest son and chase Ning Chaofan out of the family. Grandmaster, I sincerely apologize to you and beg for your forgiveness. I hope that you can help me unlock the array door. Please. Ning Chaofan's heart was bleeding. He had lost a lot of face today and brought shame to the Ningwu royal family. However, he had no other choice and even pretended to kneel before Qin Hao. Brother Ning, why are you doing this? I just want to hear an apology. It's so simple. You slapped me and kneeled before me. Aren't you telling everyone here that I'm an unforgiving villain? In fact, I've long forgotten about the incident at Coiling Dragon Peak. I was just joking with you. Please get up. Qin Hao was elated. Relying on his status as a branch of the royal family, he dared to lust after and care. He really didn't take Qin Hao seriously. However, on the surface, Qin Hao pretended to be flustered and personally helped Ning Chaofan up. Puff! Ning Chaofan turned his head and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the ground. His facial features were distorted. A simple "I'm sorry" would do. You should have said so earlier. Brother Ning is really too heavy-handed. Look at yourself. You're vomiting blood. I'm really ashamed of myself. Qin Hao sighed with remorse. What a bad guy. Kay mumbled softly. However, her heart was bursting with joy as she shot a glance at Ning Chaofan. You reap what you sow. I'm fine. Grandmaster, please help us break the formation quickly. Ning Chaofan tried his best to hold back his anger. He was very anxious and cursed in his mind. Once he got out of the Hidden Dragon's secret realm, he would chop Qin Hao into pieces and feed him to the dogs. There's no need for that. I can handle it myself. Qin Hao shook off Ning Chaofan in disdain and strode towards the light barrier with K.Er. No one dared to stop him along the way. Handle the formation door alone? Ning Chaofan was stunned and sneered coldly. What a boastful tone. Qin Hao was not afraid of biting his tongue. This guy actually despises young Master Ning and wants to break the formation by himself. Can he do it? You're asking me, but I'm asking a ghost. Let's go and take a look. Hence, behind Qin Hao, more than 50 martial artists followed, including the Broken Sword Elder and Ning Chaofan. Kid, you better have the ability to break the formation. How about? In front of the light barrier, the coffin-carrying man threatened with a sinister look. Qin Hao ignored him and began to size up the formation door. When he approached the light barrier, he realized that the so-called formation door the martial artists were talking about was actually a large iron gate in the courtyard. It was 5 meters tall and as thick as a city gate. The light barrier enveloped the courtyard, and the energy fluctuations were abnormally intense. The coffin-carrying man and the Broken Sword Elder were unable to forcefully break it open. The large iron gate was the only entrance into the courtyard. On the iron gate, there were also array fluctuations. Furthermore, there were a total of 36 flickering light spots. The light spots moved slowly without any pattern. It's actually the 36 Big Dipper star array. Qin Hao exclaimed in surprise. Ning Chaofan was even more surprised. He could not help but shout. An expert can recognize the 36 Big Dipper star array at a glance. This array was extremely ancient. Many array formation associations did not have records of it. Only almighty figures at the array emperor level or above, or the headquarters of large array formation associations, might have records of it. It was a high-level array and required the ability of the person who set it up to be at least an array emperor. In other words, it was a 9th-grade array. Although the 36 Big Dipper star array did not have any killing power, it was unpredictable. Once it trapped someone, it was impossible to escape. It blocked the large iron gate. It was no wonder that even the Broken Sword Elder could not enter. If one wanted to dispel it, one had to follow the order and connect the 36 Big Dipper stars. Among them, there were 4 first-grade stars, 9 second-grade stars, 12 third-grade stars, 5 fourth-grade stars, and so on. One had to first find the 4 weakest first-grade stars among the 36 stars and connect them according to the order of the first-grade stars. Then, the 4 first-grade stars would disappear into the array, and the array's power would weaken. So on and so forth. When Qin Hao had recognized all the stars and connected them one by one, the array would lose its power. I didn't expect to encounter such a high-level array in the arcane realm. This has aroused my desire to challenge it. Qin Hao was slightly excited and rubbed his hands together. In his previous life, his array attainments had just reached the royal grade. The last array he had studied was the 36 Big Dipper Star array. Qin Hao was very familiar with how it was arranged and how to distinguish it. Today he reviewed it. Qin Hao, are you confident? Could not understand the flowing stars in the array door. She could feel that it was very powerful and could not help but be worried. After all, if Qin Hao failed to break the array, he would be in danger of being surrounded and killed. I've said it before. I won't let anyone hurt you. And since I'm here, I'm confident. Trust me, Qin Hao said with a determined look in his eyes. With this promise, Kair felt relieved. However, in the next second, Qin Hao suddenly grabbed her and squatted on the ground. What's the matter? Danger. Everyone get down. Qin Hao suddenly squatted down, scaring all the martial artists, including the Broken Sword Elder and the Coffin Bearers. All of them prostrated themselves on the ground and buried their faces in the ground. Don't be nervous. There's sand in my boots, and it's rubbing my feet. I'll just pour it out, Qin Hao said as he took off his shoes, shook them, and put them on. Phew! All the martial artists breathed out heavily. Kid, are you messing with us? The Coffin Bearers stood up and shouted. Qin Hao still treated him like air and ignored him. Then, his fair palms slowly touched the array door. At that moment, everyone's hearts were in their throats. They did not even blink. No one knew what was in the courtyard. However, there was a light shield that covered 100 feet outside, and lightning would occasionally strike. Everyone guessed that the treasures inside were definitely heaven-defying. I hope this person can break the array. Someone clenched his fists and said. At the same time, Qin Hao's palm finally came into contact with the flowing stars in the array door. He stroked the 30 stars one by one, and the corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. It's not a rank 9 advanced array at all. It's an upgraded version of the rank 10 Emperor Yuan array. No wonder that idiot Ning Xiaofan couldn't break it after 5 days and 5 nights. It's because his mind power can't penetrate the 36 stars, Qin Hao thought to himself. Ning Xiaofan couldn't do it, but Qin Hao happened to have the qualifications to break the array. Furthermore, breaking through it was much simpler and easier than he had imagined. Because the Emperor Yuan Big Dipper array in front of them had been around for too long, the power left in the stars by the array's creator had been severely weakened. Moreover, it seemed to have been extracted by a strong external force, causing it to be even more fragile. Qin Hao didn't need to release his Emperor-grade mind power. It could even be said that a first-stage primitive emperor could easily penetrate the 36 Big Dipper stars. Breaking the array was too easy. However, Qin Hao didn't want to break it immediately. He shook his head helplessly and turned around. The power it contains is too strong. I'm afraid I am. The old man with the broken sword's sharp eyes flashed, and a murderous sword aura soared into the sky. I need the help of the two of you to break the array. Without waiting for the old man to make a move, Qin Hao continued and pointed at the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearer. Among the warriors present, they were the strongest. Once the array door was broken, the warriors would rush in to snatch the items. Qin Hao would definitely not be able to win against the two of them. Therefore, he needed to exhaust their energy. It would be best if he could exhaust the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearer in the first round. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 1211. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio exhaust you to death. Are you for real? What should we do? How confident are you? The two of them asked anxiously. They finally saw hope in breaking the array. Qin Hao was like a fox that had cultivated into a demon. He smiled and said, I need the two of you to inject your mental strength into my body to strengthen my soul and help me penetrate 30 stars. I can't guarantee how long it will take, but I have an 80% chance of breaking the array door. Are you crazy? Ning Xiaofan was shocked when he heard this. When a Yuan King martial artist received a mental attack from an Emperor Realm expert, his soul would be torn apart. If it was less severe, he would become an idiot. Unless he was born with an extremely high mental strength grade, he would be able to withstand it. He had thought of this method before, but Ning Chaofan did not dare to use it. Qin Hao's cultivation level was even lower than his, yet he dared to speak such arrogant words. Was he tired of living? Kid, are you joking? The old man with the broken sword frowned. Although he did not understand a raise, he knew how serious the consequences would be. Just do as I say. Qin Hao was unwilling to say more. I think you're courting death. The coffin-carrying man mocked. As he spoke, he gathered a huge amount of mental strength in his palm, ready to attack at any time. Qin Hao would die sooner or later. If he became an idiot, it would be to the coffin-carrying man's satisfaction and solve the Yaki's problem. Okay, you will bear the consequences. The old man with the broken sword and the coffin-carrying man looked at each other. Under Kair's nervous expression, they attacked together. He pinched his fingers and shot out a beam of mental strength that hit Qin Hao's back. It enveloped Qin Hao's entire body, and the power of the beam of mental strength attacked Qin Hao's head bit by bit. The old man with the broken sword was gentle. He was afraid that if he used too much force, he would kill Qin Hao. If that happened, no one would be able to break the array door. The coffin-carrying man did not care so much. He pressed his palm on Qin Hao's shoulder. His mental strength swept out like a tsunami, ignoring Qin Hao's life and death. Qin, don't be stupid. If you can't hold on, don't worry about me. Run far away and find my sister. Kate cannot bear to see him die like this. Tears welled up in her eyes as she secretly channeled the power of a sovereign beast. She was actually showing signs of self-destruction. If Qin Hao was in danger, she planned to die together with the broken sword elder and the coffin bearers. Silly girl, don't be rash. I'm fine. Qin Hao hurriedly gave Kay a look, indicating for her to disperse the sovereign beast's power. At this moment, Qin Hao seemed to be in great pain as he endured the spiritual attacks of two Monarch realm experts. His forehead was dripping with sweat, but in reality, there wasn't a single ripple in his heart. Furthermore, he was able to accurately determine the true cultivation levels of the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearer by following their mental energy. Beginner level 1 Primitive Emperor, late level 5 Primitive Emperor. What cunning old fox! You have hidden your strength so deeply. You are much more capable than the coffin-carrying man. Qin Hao was deeply shocked. If it wasn't for the fact that the three of them had intertwined their mental energy and that his own mental energy level had suppressed the two of them, it was really hard to imagine that the old man with the broken sword's cultivation level was so terrifying. Of course, the coffin-carrying man's cultivation level had truly stepped into the Monarch realm. This wasn't a good thing for Qin Hao either. I was too confident, but there is no way out. Qin Hao secretly clenched his fists. The enemy's strength was far beyond his expectations. Next, he pretended to spy on the 36 stars of the Great Iron Gate. Behind his back, Qin Hao condensed his mental energy and attacked the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword. Whoosh! The mental energy surged into their bodies. The coffin-carrying man suffered from the impact, and his body swayed violently. He almost fell to the ground without caring about his image. The old man with the broken sword's face suddenly turned pale. He felt as if his brain was being torn apart. The Great Iron Gate's formation is so powerful. I hope the two of you don't hold back and strengthen your mental energy fluctuations. Qin Hao bit the tip of his tongue, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was as if he had been injured by the formation just now. He actually withstood the mental attack of two primitive emperors. Is he a monster? Ning Chaofan's legs were trembling. The facts before his eyes had proven that Qin Hao's mental energy level was far above his. It was strong enough to withstand the impact of two Monarch realm martial artists. Perhaps he could really break open the Great Iron Gate. In that case, Ning Chaofan wouldn't have to die. This damn Great Iron Gate. It's so strong that it almost made me squat on the ground. When a formation is broken, watch me smash it into pieces. The coffin-carrying man roared and bombarded Qin Hao with his mental energy even more recklessly. The old man with the broken sword was no longer gentle. Instead, he became violent. He didn't care about Qin Hao's life and death. Wave after wave of mental energy surged into Qin Hao's body. However, on the surface, Qin Hao pretended to be thinking about how to break the formation. Behind his back, his own mental energy attacked the two of them. The two sides were like a tug of war, endlessly exhausting their mental energy. As time passed, the more they exhausted their mental energy, the paler the faces of the coffin-carrying man and the old man with the broken sword became. Large beads of sweat rolled down their faces and their legs trembled. Moreover, Qin Hao had exhausted them for 4 hours. It was like an adult toying with a child. He didn't suffer any losses. Anyway, his emperor-level mental energy was strong enough. The old man with the broken sword and the coffin-carrying man's consciousness became more and more blurred. They were drowsy and their mental energy was dispirited, showing signs of fainting at any time. "Kid, how much longer do you need? We can't hold on any longer." The old man with the broken sword finally spoke. His legs were numb after standing still for 4 hours, let alone continuously releasing mental energy for 4 hours. As for the coffin-carrying man, his condition was worse than the old man with the broken sword. Blood flowed out of his mouth. He was at his limit and his eyes were bloodshot. He was like a wild beast that would go berserk at any time. Qin Hao knew that the coffin-carrying man was about to go berserk. Once he went berserk, he would become crazy and crazy like a killing machine. Unless he died of exhaustion, he wouldn't stop. That was undoubtedly dangerous for Qin Hao. Break! Qin Hao knew when to stop. He had already figured out the 36 Big Dipper stars. His fingers were like a brush, and his vital energy turned into ink. He quickly drew across the formation door and connected 4 of the stars. Buzz! After being connected by his vital energy, the stars emitted a bright light and then slowly disappeared from the iron gate. At this moment, the power of the formation that enveloped the iron gate began to weaken. Success! Someone shouted excitedly. He was so excited that he couldn't stop himself. Please remember the domain name of this book, 9 Heaven's Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1212. The door was broken. This shout was like a signal that cleared the mind of the coffin-carrying man, who was about to go berserk. The other warriors howled and pounded their chests. The treasure was right in front of them, and the array was about to break. The old man with the broken sword couldn't help but feel excited. He focused his energy, and together with the coffin-carrying man, he sent another spiritual attack at Qin Hao. However, the more they did this, the more exhausted they became. This was because they were taking drastic measures to deal with the problem. Even Ning Chaofan, who didn't like Qin Hao and was even jealous of him, couldn't help but praise. He actually managed to connect all 36 Big Dipper stars in one go. What an exquisite technique. Don't tell me he relied on luck again. The subordinate in black snorted. Following Ning Chaofan's sharp gaze, the subordinate in black slapped his own face twice. "If you talk any more, scram to the side, and I'll slap you 1,000 times." Ning Chaofan pointed at the subordinate in black's nose and reprimanded him. It was fine if Qin Hao could break the array, but if he couldn't, Ning Chaofan would also die. This subordinate won't dare to do it again. Moreover, I believe that the white-haired brother will definitely be able to resolve the remaining 32 stars. For him, it'll be a piece of cake. The subordinate in black looked at Ning Chaofan pitifully. Hearing the discussion behind him, Qin Hao sneered in his heart. His fingers quickly moved. Heavenly stand, heavenly kill, heavenly search, heavenly wound, heavenly speed star. Open for me. He pointed at 9 stars in a row and connected them according to their order. In the next second, the 9 second-grade stars disappeared from the iron door. The array that enveloped the iron door weakened by another layer. Good. Beautiful. White-hair brother, good job. You're much better than Ning Chaofan, who calls himself a genius. Genius? He couldn't break through it after 5 days and nights. The white-hair brother only used 4 hours to break through half of it. The white-hair brother is the real genius. roar. Genius, genius, genius. The surrounding martial artists were all excited. They raised their arms and cheered, their shouts causing Ning Chaofan to feel like a monkey. There was nowhere to hide, and he wished he could find a hole in the ground. Qin, do your best. The spell formation continued to weaken in Qin Hao's hands, and Er's confidence was greatly boosted. She no longer had any thoughts of self-destructing, and she even sighed in admiration. As expected of the man that her elder sister had taken a fancy to, he was just that cool. Heavenly longevity, heavenly solitude, heavenly solitude, heavenly might, heavenly leisure star. Open for me. Following that, another 12 stars disappeared under Qin Hao's palm. The third wave of stars that disappeared belonged to third-grade stars. Tianyong, Tianxiao, Tianan, Tianxiong, Tianjiangxing. Following Qin Hao's shout, the fourth-class bright star disappeared from the formation door. So far, there were only 6 left. However, at that moment, not only did the crowd not relax, they instead became even more nervous. This was especially true for Ning Chaofan. Of the remaining 6 pills, 2 were 5th grade and 4 were 6th grade. However, one wrong step and the whole game would be lost. The disappeared stars would reappear, and the power of the spell formation would be instantly restored. Even if Qin Hao made a slight mistake in the sequence of the connecting technique, the stars would turn the tables. This 36 Big Dipper star array not only tested the spiritual power of the spell formation master, but also unparalleled hand speed and cognitive ability. However, Ning Chaofan was obviously worried for nothing, because in the next second, the remaining 6 stars were all recognized by Qin Hao in front of everyone's eyes, and they were completely dissolved. Tiangui, Tianjie, Tianke, Tiangang. Open for me. With a dignified command, Qin Hao's finger moved Yuan Qi and streaked across the last 4 stars. Wong. The formation door shook, and a cloud of dust flew out. All the twinkling stars on it disappeared without a trace. The spell formation was completely broken. Plop. At that moment, the coffin bearers seemed to have lost all their strength. They fell head first, and the huge black coffin on their shoulders rolled out, smashing the leg of an unlucky martial artist. That unlucky martial artist let out a heart-wrenching scream. It's finally broken. The old man with the broken sword revealed a relieved smile. Although he did not fall, his steps were shaky. However, as they fed a few pills to their mouths, the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearers looked much better. Perhaps the pills could not completely replenish their spiritual power, but at least they could prevent their spiritual power from being empty and fainting on the ground. I've lost. I'm not as good as him. Ning Chaofan bowed to Qin Hao's back with incomparable sincerity. Previously, he was forced about a Qin Hao in order to survive. However, at this moment, he was sincerely impressed and completely convinced. Qin Hao had only used 4 hours to break a 9th rank formation. Moreover, it was the Big Dipper star formation, which was one of the most difficult 9th rank formations. Such a profound method was worthy of respect. Moreover, Qin Hao was only in Yuan Monarch, and he was facing the spiritual attack of 2 Yuan emperors behind him. If it had been Ning Chaofan, he would have died in the battle between the formation, the old man with the broken sword, and the coffin bearers. Boom! A heavy sound was heard. Before the crowd could praise Qin Hao, they saw the 5-meter-tall, heavy iron gate in front of them slowly open. At that moment, a primitive, simple, and powerful aura spread out from behind the iron gate, accompanied by a large amount of dust. It was as if there was an ancient emperor-level elite in battle armor standing behind the iron gate, and it was difficult to resist. Under this pressure, everyone could not help but have the urge to kneel down and worship. However, humans were greedy. The allure of treasures shattered the awe that the martial artists felt in their hearts. More than 50 martial artists, of which 10 of them were soul essence heaven's prides, did not even need to discuss anything. All of them madly rushed in, just like a pack of hungry wolves. There was a crazy commotion behind him. Qin Hao knelt on one knee and pretended to vomit blood, but he was not the first to rush in. Qin Hao's position was closest to the iron gate, and he had the highest chance of being the first to rush into the courtyard. However, he did not. Qin Hao, how are you? Worried about Qin Hao's safety, Kay immediately came to help him. She was not swayed by the temptation of the treasure. Compared to Qin Hao, the treasure was useless in Kay's eyes. I'm fine, Qin Hao said, secretly winking at Kay. His eyes were bright, and there was no sign of mental exhaustion. Since the formation gate has been broken, you can die now. Suddenly, the sinister voice of the coffin-carrying man rang out. Then, without hesitation, he punched Qin Hao in the back. The old man with the broken sword looked on helplessly. He did not fulfill his promise to protect Qin Hao and Kair. On the contrary, at this moment, the old man's lips were curled into a smile. Burning the bridge after crossing the river was the most appropriate way to describe a despicable person. However, before the coffin-carrying man could hit Qin Hao in the back, a shrill scream came from the front and interrupted him. Then, the coffin-carrying man was shocked to see a 3-meter-long spear fly out from behind the iron gate. With a sharp sound, it pierced through the head of the ancient martial art practitioner who was running at the front. After that, it sent the corpse flying and nailed it in front of the coffin-carrying man. This ancient martial art practitioner was not an ordinary person. He was one of the 10 Essence Soul ancient martial art practitioners, and he had the highest cultivation level among them. His Essence Soul was a rhinoceros beast. Its defensive power was so strong that the coffin-carrying man did not dare to say that he could kill it in one move. However, the long spear that flew out from behind the iron gate had nailed him to the ground, and his soul had been destroyed. Please remember the domain name of this book, the mobile version of the Jiuqian Divine Emperor website. Chapter 12-13. Qianqian, Primordial Alchemy Venerable. Chapter 12-13. Rescue. There is no face that cannot be slapped. What a strong armor-piercing power. Retreat. The crowd that had rushed indecisively retreated. Looking at the corpse of the martial artist whose head had been pierced through by the great spear, their hearts trembled. At the same time, he glanced at Qin Hao and Ning Chaofan for help, hoping that they could investigate. Ning Chaofan saw that Qin Hao's condition wasn't good, so he decided to investigate first. He stood at the entrance of the iron gate and looked inside. There was a tunnel inside that was similar to the tunnel of the city gate tower. It was arched and 4 meters high. The ground was covered with green stone slabs. He picked up a stone and threw it. With a bang, the stone fell into the passageway. Instantly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from the other side again, and the murderous aura was astonishing. This time, the 3 spears landed where the rocks had fallen, causing the rocks to shatter and the ground to be pierced. Mechanism technique, Ning Chaofan said with difficulty. The stone slab was the button that activated the mechanism. Anyone who stepped on it would die on the spot. However, the martialists present were all Yuan venerates, so they didn't necessarily have to walk on stone slabs. Ning Chaofan's gaze fell on the wall of the passageway. He touched the wall with his palm. This touch completely shattered the hope in his heart. The wall was incomparably smooth. In a situation where flight was prohibited, no one would be able to fly for a long period of time. Sorry, I can't help you. The wall was too slippery, and I estimated that it was at least 500 meters deep. No matter how profound my movement technique was, I wouldn't be able to handle it. Stepping on the stone slabs was the only way to enter. The stone slabs were reinforced by a formation, so I wouldn't be able to break them. And everyone, please take a look. Ning Chaofan stepped back, shaking his head and sighing. He subconsciously glanced at Qin Hao. Grandmaster, I beg you to help me break this damned mechanism. If you can decipher it for us, we won't hesitate to do anything for you in the future, even if we have to climb a mountain of blades or dive into a sea of flames. Master, please. Everyone bowed to Qin Hao for help. I'm sorry. I'm exhausted right now. There's nothing I can do. Qin Hao refused decisively. Fall into a trap for her. Behind the iron gate is a mountain of daggers and a sea of flames. If you guys aren't careless, then go ahead. Now, The promises that these martial artists had made were all nonsense. Once they obtained the treasures, who would care about Qin Hao's efforts? Master, I have an 8th grade spirit congealing pill here, which is extremely precious. I have saved it for more than 20 years, and I have been reluctant to use it. Today, I suddenly realized that it was prepared for Master. Now I give it to you. Please don't refuse. Grandmaster, I have 2 rank 8 medicinal herbs that I found in the secret realm. I don't know if they're useful for recovering spiritual energy. Now that they belong to you, I also think that they grew for you. This is the will of the heavens. Grandmaster, come. Let me introduce you. This is my junior sister. She has a level 7 Yuan Venerate cultivation base and is a rare essence soul realm cultivator. My junior sister is the pride of the heavens in the sect and looks down on all the male disciples, including me. She has always dreamed of meeting her destined one. Today, I feel that my junior sister's destined one has finally surfaced. So it's you, Grandmaster. Ha. Burp. Sorry, I'm a little full. Marriage is destined by the heavens. Grandmaster, don't miss it. The martial artists stepped forward one by one, each showing off their skills and using their best flattery skills to bombard Qin Hao with praises. Some gave him treasures, some gave him elixirs, and some gave him weapons. Among them, there was a particularly shameless fellow who even gave his junior sister a gift. It had to be said that his junior sister was very valuable. Her figure was extremely hot and curvy, and her facial features were extremely charming. Every frown and smile of hers could hook one's soul into the palace of the king of hell. More than a dozen martial artists couldn't help but drool all over the ground. As she spoke, the fiery female disciple took the initiative to squeeze her body toward Qin Hao. Greetings, Grandmaster. You are really handsome, especially with that hairstyle. Go away. Don't touch my brother-in-law. K. Or forcefully pushed the female disciple away. Her almond eyes were filled with anger, and her little mouth was puffed up. She looked like a little hen protecting her young. This fiery female disciple was dressed so coquettishly that one could tell that she wasn't a decent person. Even a decent girl wouldn't be allowed to touch Qin Hao because Qin Hao only belonged to Xiao Han. Humph, what a rude little girl. How can there be such an uneducated wild girl by the Grandmaster's side? The fiery female disciple was also very angry. Her eyes were like knives that wanted to stab K. To death. Pa! Qin Hao stood up and slapped her. Who are you calling uneducated? You. The female disciple was stunned by the slap. Even her senior brother was stunned in place. In the next second, the fiery female disciple was filled with rage. She released her venerable level vitality, and a black python source spirit appeared behind her. And you dare to be rude to the Grandmaster? You're courting death. The fiery female disciple undoubtedly stirred up public anger. All the martial artists did not hesitate to protect Qin Hao. Even if she had a source spirit, she would definitely not be able to withstand a joint attack from the crowd. In the next second, the fiery female disciple also retreated behind her senior brother. She looked very pathetic, and her snake-like eyes glared fiercely at Qin Hao and K. Everyone, it's not impossible for me to break the mechanism. It's just that someone suddenly tried to kill me just now and didn't give me any credit for breaking the array door. There was also a shameless old slut. She said that she would protect me in the beginning, but she didn't stop anyone from trying to kill me. If I helped you break the mechanism and someone tried to kill me while I was weak, wouldn't I have died an unjust death? Qin Hao turned around and looked at the coffin-carrying man. The coffin-carrying man was still in his punching position. He couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Coffin-carrying man, what do you mean? You think you're so great just because you have a high cultivation level? It's bad enough that you bullied us these past few days, but you even dared to make a move on the Master. This is intolerable. If you don't apologize to the Master, it's only a matter of time before we kill you, even if you're a level 1 Origin Venerate. Don't force us. Wong. I'm sorry, everyone. Old man used a lot of mental energy to break the gate. I was careless and almost let that mad dog succeed. It's really my fault. However, I promise that it won't happen again. I'll be responsible for the master's safety." This fearless lineup made the old man with the broken sword cower. More than 50 Yuan venerates joining forces was no joke. There were also 10 Origin Soul Origin venerates among them. 10 Origin Soul Origin venerates were enough to kill the coffin-carrying man and make the old man pay a heavy price. Old Man Broken Sword. The coffin-carrying man hadn't expected that the old man would actually admit defeat and join the crowd. "What about me? I wouldn't dare say this outside, but you don't have the right to be called the #1 expert in this mystic realm. If you don't apologize to the master, don't blame old man for being merciless." The old man with the broken sword threatened as the broken ancient sword on his back hummed. Creak. The coffin-carrying man clenched his fists tightly. Apologize? Just like Ning Chaofan, he slapped himself and bowed his head in apology to Qin Hao. Impossible. The coffin-carrying man had killed countless people in his life and had never apologized to anyone. He didn't feel guilty at all. Unless the sun rose from the west, he could die and slap himself in the face. "Huh." Qin Hao didn't care. He slapped the coffin-carrying man's face and glared at him. "What? You don't like it?" Chapter 12:14. You. The coffin-carrying man's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He wanted to strangle Qin Hao to death. "Pa!" Qin Hao threw out a second palm without hesitation. "Damn it! Pa! Third palm! Why did you only slap my left cheek?" "Pa!" This time the right cheek was slapped. "Master, I was wrong. I sincerely apologize. It was my fault. Please don't hit me again." More than 50 warriors glared at him. The pressure enveloped the coffin-carrying man's body, and he did not dare to move. If he did not admit his mistake, he would not know how long he would be beaten. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. After apologizing, Qin Hao stopped. His eyes were cold as he turned and stepped into the tunnel. The coffin-carrying man stood there like a clown. He was deeply despised. "Damn brat, just you wait. After I get the treasures inside, I will torture you to death." The coffin-carrying man roared in his heart. The other warriors were extremely pleased. They dispersed their yuan qi and followed Qin Hao. During this period, they had been bullied by the coffin-carrying man. If they made him unhappy, they would be killed immediately. In fact, 8 of them had been killed by the coffin-carrying man. On the other side, Ning Chaofan saw Qin Hao walking over. He quickly gave up his position and said respectfully, "Master, Qin Hao nodded slightly. He looked at the tunnel and bent down to pick up a stone and throw it in. What was different from Ning Chaofan's method was that the stone Ning Chaofan threw was in the form of a parabola, creating an arc in the air. However, Qin Hao threw the stone close to the ground. It was as if he was gliding on water. He was very fast and disappeared at the end of the tunnel in the blink of an eye. As he flew, all the traps were triggered by the stone. Accompanied by a series of poochie, poochie sounds, the warriors were stunned. In the tunnel ahead, the first 8 stone slabs on the ground were intact. The 9th stone slab was pierced by 4 large spears and was shattered. After that, the pattern was still the same. Another 8 stone slabs were intact. The 9th stone slab was struck by the great spear, and so on. It's the 8 steps continuous stomp. Qin Hao frowned with a serious expression. As the name implied, the 8 consecutive steps referred to martial artists who entered the tunnel. The first 8 steps were very safe, and the 9th step would lead to death. If he did not avoid the 9th stone slab, his entire body would be pierced through by the ferocious spear. But was it really as Qin Hao had said? Was it really that easy? What happened next was an eye-opening experience for the martial artists. They saw that the blue stone slabs in the tunnel were like complete mirrors, emitting a bright light. After this light passed, the spear that was stuck in the ground disappeared and the shattered stone slabs were restored to their original state. Moreover, they crazily moved around, interweaving with each other. It was a dazzling sight. Because the stone slabs were all green in color and the shape was exactly the same, it was impossible to tell them apart. After a series of flashes, no one could remember from which angle the stone Qin Hao had thrown had flown. As for the 8 consecutive steps continuous stomp, no one knew if the first step would be on the stone slab with a hidden mechanism or if the mechanism would be on the second or third step. What an exquisite array formation! The old man with the broken sword exclaimed. Even he was shocked by it. The other martial artists were all dumbfounded. It was so mysterious and unpredictable. Only a ghost could walk through it. Grandmaster, please accept me as your disciple. Plop. Ning Chaofan knelt at Qin Hao's feet. What bullshit dignity of the royal family. He didn't care. Compared to the shock of the other martial artists, Ning Chaofan was even more shocked by Qin Hao's stone-throwing technique. Although it was only a simple beginner-level movement, it surpassed all the array masters that Ning Chaofan had studied under by 1,000 times. How much experience and meticulousness did one need to have in order to have such a precise detection method like Qin Hao's? Compared to other array masters, those people were dog shit, trash, and useless people who misled others. They could all go eat sh*t. Why are you doing this? Qin Hao lowered his head and looked at Ning Chaofan. Could it be that he was frightened by his detection method? Grandmaster, I want to learn array formations from you. As long as you are willing to take me with you, I will work like an ox or a horse without complaint. If I leave the mystic realm alive, the Ning family of Golden Light City will regard you as their eternal teacher. Ning Chaofan's eyes were sincere, and he was so excited that he began to tear up. He felt that at this moment, he finally understood what a real array master was. Eldest young master, you aren't serious, are you? If the city lord knows that you are so rash and kneel down to someone. Shut up. If my father were here to see Grandmaster's technique, he would definitely kneel down and beg him to accept me. Ning Chaofan shouted, interrupting the subordinate in black. Involuntarily, the warriors present were deeply surprised by the scene in front of them, but they did not say anything. Ning Chaofan's apprenticeship was Ning Chaofan's business. They only wanted to get the treasures in the temple. However, the coffin bearers were not so relaxed. If Qin Hao really accepted Ning Chaofan, ahem, Grandmaster, allow the old man to say one more thing. Apprenticeship is between the two of you. Now, can you tell everyone whether you are confident that you can lead us safely through the 8 steps chain? The old man with the broken sword asked, looking very anxious. Yes, Grandmaster, let's go through the tunnel first. Everyone is very busy. We don't know if the mystic realm will suddenly disappear. We don't want to miss the opportunity to get the treasures. The warriors pleaded. Get up first. Whether you can be my disciple or not, we will talk about it after we leave the mystic realm. Qin Hao stretched out a hand and pulled Ning Chaofan up. Although this person was a little arrogant, his desire to learn was sincere. If he could maintain this sincerity and protect Qin Hao until they left the mystic realm, then he wouldn't mind imparting some array formation techniques to Ning Chaofan. Yes, master. Ning Chaofan stood up happily. Although Qin Hao didn't agree, he didn't refuse either. Sigh, how can a mid-level, 7th-level Yuan venerate become apprenticed to a trashy Yuan monarch? Furthermore, my young master has a sore soul, and the blood of the martial Ning Empire's royal family flows in his veins. Golden Light City is also the martial Ning Empire's #1 trading city and controls the Empire's economic lifeline. The subordinate in black sighed helplessly. Of course, he only grumbled inwardly and didn't dare say it in front of Ning Chaofan. Everyone, listen up. I can lead you safely through the 8 steps chain array in the tunnel. I hope that everyone will remember where I'm going and keep up with my pace when I leave. If there is even the slightest mistake, you will end up with your head pierced through. Do you understand? Qin Hao looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were roaming and cracks were faintly appearing in the sky. This wasn't a good omen. The mystic realm might really disappear suddenly, so they couldn't delay any longer. Understood. Master, please lead us to the mystic temple's treasure. The martialists shouted in unison. Qin Hao nodded and bent his legs slightly to lower his body as much as possible. Then he said to Kay, little girl, come up. I will carry you. Kay, was young and playful. If she accidentally stepped on the wrong foot, It would be too late for regrets. After all, the huge spear that had killed the rhinoceros martialist was extremely terrifying. Its attack power was even more frightening than everyone had imagined. Qin Hao could sense that it had the power to kill a monarch-grade martialist. Okay, Kair was very obedient. She wrapped her arms around Qin Hao's neck and jumped on his back. Qin Hao's back was very sturdy. Although it looked thin on the outside, it was actually very strong and broad. It gave people a comfortable feeling. Qin Hao, you are so nice. Kair whispered into Qin Hao's ear. Her face was slightly flushed. No wonder her sister liked him so much and waited for him for 5 years. There weren't many men who were as attentive and gentle as Qin Hao. Everyone, let's go. Qin Hao hugged Kair's thighs tightly and used the waterwind steps. He gritted his teeth and stepped into the strange 8-step chain array. The mystic temple's treasure, which had been silent for 1,000 years, was about to welcome his guests. 23. Education 123 Literature Network. Chapter 12:15. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Sagittarius Palace. Elder Qin Hao's speed was not very fast. In order to prevent others from falling behind, he only used the waterwind steps to increase his agility. After all, no one could say for sure if there were any dangers ahead. Only by sticking together would they have a chance of obtaining the treasure. The mystic realm was showing signs of disappearing. Otherwise, they would not have let the coffin bearers off so easily. As they moved forward, Qin Hao's immense spiritual power spread out and enveloped all the stone slabs near him. Under the cover of spiritual power, all the stone slabs with hidden mechanisms could be avoided. Qin Hao jumped left and right, as nimble as a rabbit. Kair was very obedient on his back and was very quiet, so as not to disturb Qin Hao. Behind Qin Hao were Ning Chaofan and his black-clothed subordinates, followed by the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearers. In order to be more nimble, the coffin bearers had also put away the huge black coffin. The other warriors did not dare to fall behind. They formed a line and firmly followed the footsteps of the person in front of them. They passed through the 500-meter-long tunnel without any mishaps. Of course, there was an unlucky guy who accidentally slipped and triggered the mechanism below the stone slab. Dozens of large spears flew through the air and tore his body apart. It was a bloody scene. He was also unlucky. One of his legs had been accidentally smashed by the coffin bearer's black coffin. He had been jumping around with the other leg, which was why he had unfortunately slipped. In short, they had lost a cripple and the rest had all passed. It was a completely acceptable loss. That scared me to death. It was so frightening just now. It's all thanks to the Master's guidance. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to enter so easily. Standing at the exit of the tunnel, the 50-odd warriors, including Qin Hao, looked forward. There was a huge courtyard in front of them. It was much larger than what the outside world had imagined. In the center of the courtyard was a martial arts arena. It was rectangular, 2,000 meters deep, and 1,000 meters across. It was very majestic. However, what was even more shocking was that there was a towering origin crystal in the middle of the martial arts arena. Looking up, the top of the origin crystal was directly above the light barrier that enveloped the courtyard. This meant that this stone was also 1,000 feet tall. Heavens, what a huge piece of primal crystal stone. It really blinded my eyes. Even in my dreams, I have never seen such a majestic primal crystal stone. It's too abnormal. It's the biggest piece I've ever seen in my life. It can be called the king of origin crystals. With a series of screams, more than 50 martial artists all ran onto the martial arts practice field and stood in front of the primal crystal stones. They raised their heads and gazed at the primal crystal stones with dreamy expressions. Even Qin Hao was deeply moved. The amount of primal crystal stones in front of him was simply too enormous. Of course, Qin Hao had seen something bigger than this. At the bottom of the Broken Dragon Cliff's blood pool, there was a dragon crystal mine. Qin Hao's dragon soul was obtained there, although he had never seen the dragon vein with his own eyes. However, According to the old demon's description, it was tens of thousands of miles long and stretched without end. It was formed from dragon bones. Compared to the dragon vein, the origin crystals in the courtyard were like children standing in front of their parents. However, in terms of purity, the huge origin crystals in the courtyard should have surpassed the dragon vein in terms of quality. After all, the quality of the dragon vein was uneven. There were heaven crystals and earth crystals. Qin Hao believed that the crystal stone in front of him was definitely made up of supreme-grade heaven crystals. Unfortunately, it had lost its original luster. The spirit qi inside had been sucked dry by external forces, leaving behind a mottled gray stone appearance. At this moment, a thought flashed through Qin Hao's mind. It's impossible to completely extract the spirit qi from such a huge origin crystal without hundreds or even thousands of years of consumption. It's hidden behind Coiling Dragon Peak and the spirit qi that appeared on the fourth platform of Coiling Dragon Peak. Could it be? Thump. Qin Hao was shocked by his own guess. However, it should be the case. No matter how profound Spirit Emperor Ling Yangzi's enchantment techniques were, he couldn't use the power of an array to absorb enough spirit qi for the Southern Region martial artists to absorb for 800 years. The spirit qi that appeared on Coiling Dragon Peak must have been obtained from this huge heaven crystal. Li Wanji's array skills are 10 times better than Uncle Yan's. Even among all the array emperors I knew in my previous life, no one could match his ability. Qin Hao clenched his fists and muttered. Yin Lao Bei was known as the #1 array emperor of the northern frontier. However, compared to Li Wanji of the southern region, the gap was obviously huge. Suddenly, a shrill scream unexpectedly broke the silence. Qin Hao turned his head and saw that among the martial artists surrounding the Origin Crystal Mountain, 3 of them were suddenly attacked. A powerful golden arrow pierced their chests. When the arrow was shot, it didn't carry any sound. From the screams and the angle of the arrow piercing through the bear, it was analyzed that the arrow entered the bodies of the 3 martial artists at the same time. Bang! What happened next was even more shocking. The bodies of the 3 martial artists who were hit by the arrow exploded, turning into 3 clouds of blood mist. Their broken limbs scattered all over the ground. It was the terrifying primordial qi carried by the arrow that destroyed his soul. Danger! There's an enemy. Everyone be careful. The martial artists cried out in alarm. All of them circulated their spirit qi and formed a circle with their backs against each other. The old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearers also looked nervous. After all, even they hadn't sensed the arrow when it was shot. If that arrow had been shot at them, it was very likely that they would have suffered the same fate. Kair, hide behind me. Qin Hao stretched out his hand and pulled Kair behind him. The indestructible samsara art circulated in his body, and his left palm turned red as though it could spit out flames. His right fist was enveloped in a faint golden glow, and dragon scales were faintly discernible. His 2 souls were accumulating power and waiting. Tap, tap, tap. Heavy, sturdy footsteps were heard, accompanied by the clattering sound of armor. These footsteps felt like they were stepping on everyone's hearts, making them feel even more uncomfortable. Beads of sweat rolled down the faces of all the martial artists. It seemed like everyone knew that the person who would appear in the next second would definitely be an extremely terrifying existence. After all, among the 3 martial artists who had just died, the weakest had been a level 8 martialist, while the strongest had been a peak Yuan venerate. However, they had all been killed by 3 arrows as though they were lambs being slaughtered. Gradually, under this pressure, a knight in dazzling golden armor stepped out from behind the Yuan Crystal Mountain. The knight's physique was extremely sturdy, and he was about the same height as Qin Hao. He held a dazzling golden bow in his left hand. Even the bowstring was golden. Based on its appearance, it seemed extremely powerful. His right hand rested on the quiver on his back. Inside the quiver was a dense array of golden arrows that were exactly the same as the arrows that had shot the 3 Yuan venerates. Furthermore, this person was wearing a golden helmet. The helmet was covered by a golden mask, so no one could see his appearance clearly. On the back of this person's armor were 6 pairs of golden wings. He was as sacred as an archangel, and humans were like ants beneath his feet. What a terrifying pressure. This power is at least at the Monarch level. Furthermore, his armor protects his body from all angles. There isn't a single gap, and his defensive capabilities are extremely shocking. How are we going to break through this? A martialist sobbed. An enemy with a Monarch-level cultivation and a full body of Monarch-level equipment was enough to wipe out all the martialists present. Furthermore, he has golden wings on his back. Could it be that he can ignore the rules of the mystic realm and fly at will? A martialist with a foul mouth said. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the sacred knight opposite him spread out his 6 pairs of golden wings. There was a total of 12 wings that were extremely gorgeous. His body slowly rose into the air like a god. His majestic aura made people not dare to look at him directly. The foul-mouthed martialist's words were true. His wings could allow him to fly in the mystic realm. Blasphemer die. 12 zodiac palaces, Sagittarius Palace, join in. Whoosh! A desolate voice that made one's scalp go numb was heard. Then, the 12 wings on the back of the knight that rose into the air vibrated. The golden bow in his left hand was once again knocked with 3 golden arrows. His target was the martialist below. Please remember the domain name of this book, 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1216. Killing their way out, the martial artists were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They were all scared into chaos. The old man with the broken sword and the coffin-carrying man looked at each other, nodded silently, and made their move at the same time. So. 3 golden lights flashed in the air. The coffin-carrying man roared, summoning the black coffin sword spirit. Like holding a black pillar, he swung it at one of the arrows. Let the old man see how strong you are. The old man with the broken sword pondered. Sword chi surged around his body. His hand formed a sword art, and 2 sword chi swept out, meeting the 2 golden arrows. Pung, pung, pung. 3 bursts of energy exploded in midair, causing the space to vibrate with a buzzing sound. The coffin-carrying man's black coffin collided with the arrows. The chi and blood in his chest surged. His majestic body slid back 10 meters, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The broken sword old man's sword chi collided with the arrows. Although he was not pushed back, he did not spit out blood. But the web between his thumb and index finger on his right hand had already split open, and the 3 arrows were repelled by the power of the 2 origin emperors. But there was no sign of them breaking, as they bounced off in all directions. This person's battle strength is around the 3rd step emperor realm, but his archery skills are superb, and he has a full set of golden battle armor, so it's impossible to determine if those arrows were randomly shot by him. Perhaps this is not his full strength. The coffin-carrying man said, staring at Qin Hao with hatred. If it was not for the fact that his mind was exhausted, he would not have spat out blood from that arrow. The old man with the broken sword was the same. Breaking the iron door had weakened his mind, and he was not paying attention, falling into a disadvantage. See, everyone sucked in a cold breath. The Southern Sea coffin-carrying man and the broken sword old man's cultivation, they were definitely at the top of the group, facing the same enemy at the same time. In a situation where they worked together, they were still defeated in a single move. It was terrifying to the extreme. Fortunately, he is only one person, and we have over 50 people. A fifth of them are origin soul cultivators, so killing him is not difficult. It is even very easy. The old man with the broken sword said, incomparably confident. In fact, he was certain he could kill the 12-winged knight, but he would have to pay a small price. Who? Hearing this, everyone's tense mood relaxed. That's right. Fortunately, there was only one enemy like this. However, what happened next plunged everyone into despair. Perhaps sensing that the coffin bearer and the old man with the broken sword were more difficult to deal with, the archer warrior floating in the air let out a shrill howl. Immediately after, behind the crystal mountain, a burly warrior in full golden armor appeared. Then, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, a total of 11 figures walked out, all of them covered in golden armor. Including the Sagittarius Palace, there were 12 of them. Taurus Palace, participate. Bang! Among the 11 figures, the one with the most barbaric aura and the biggest stature took a step forward, causing the entire courtyard to tremble. He was very tall. It was 5 meters tall and looked like a wild beast. On its head was a helmet with a pair of sharp horns. Strong. It was simply too majestic. Just by looking at the Taurus Temple warriors' fists that were as large as water tanks, the martial artists firmly believed that apart from the broken sword old man and the coffin bearers, whoever they hit would die. Aquarius Palace, participate. A golden warrior with a water tank in his arms walked out, although his armor was also golden in color. However, his body was surrounded by blue water vapor. His appearance was very similar to Yi Shuai-Han, who was possessed by the water god. However, his aura was 10 times stronger than Yi Shuan's. Scorpio Palace, participate. Pisces Palace, participate. Virgo Palace, participate. A female voice sounded. Magic Scorpio Palace, participate. Gemini Palace, Leo Palace, Tianping, Aries. Cancer, we participate. Those who blaspheme Tian Xian Empress, kill without mercy. The shouts in unison shook the heavens and the earth. The murderous aura turned into a torrent, as if a magnificent army was charging forward. The brave martial artists were so frightened that they fell on their butts. The cowardly martial artists let out shrill shrieks that sounded like the throats of a male duck. Despair filled everyone's faces. The 12 golden warriors, each of their auras were no weaker than the floating Sagittarius Palace warriors. The Taurus warrior with the largest body gave people the feeling of an ancient giant stepping on them, as if he could stomp everyone into meat paste with a single step. At this moment, the martial artists only had one sentence in their hearts. I want to go home and find my mother. The broken sword elder, who had always been the calmest, could no longer remain calm. His facial features were distorted, as if his ancestor had died. Even the coffin bearer's fierce eyes were filled with panic, as if he would run away in the next second. However, the archer who was flying high in the sky, as well as the Pisces and Aquarius warriors who were emitting water light, used their abilities to tell everyone, "Run?" That was impossible. No one was faster than the archer, and no one could successfully use water escape. As for the sinister Scorpion combination, Scorpio, Demon Scorpion, and Cancer, the 3 of them had already secretly gambled on everyone's escape route and followed the Taurus warrior to step on the ground. Bang! The big iron door at the exit of the tunnel was tightly shut. How are we going to survive? How are we going to survive? It's all the white-haired old man's fault. He absorbed the array dragon spirit, causing the space to become chaotic and inexplicably involved us in here. The martial artists crazily held their heads and screamed. They screamed until their eyes were bloodshot, and they were in complete despair. Good treasure. If Guadi wears the Taurus Palace armor, and Shuai-Han wears the Aquarius Palace armor, it's simply too cool. Yeah, that Demon Scorpion warrior has black smoke around it. It seems to be a good match for Xiaojio. There's also the Virgo Palace. It's emitting ice chi all over. I wonder if Lien under the mask is as beautiful as Wan Qin. Different from the other martial artists, Qin Hao stared at the 12 people's equipment, and he was so excited that he could drool. He could conclude that each set of equipment from the 12 palaces was at least emperor grade. As for how high the quality was, Qin Hao couldn't tell, because the quality of the 12 sets of golden armor had completely exceeded Qin Hao's vision as a beginner emperor-grade weapon refiner. If Gu Huang was here, he might be able to tell. Among the 12 sets of armor, Qin Hao's favorite was none other than the Sagittarius Palace. The Sagittarius Palace armor could be said to be tailor-made for martial artists who were good at archery. Its lines were perfect, especially that golden battle bow, although there is still a certain gap between it and my sunset divine bow. If I get this bow, the power of my sunset arrows can at least double. Qin Hao thought to himself, and he was eager to challenge the Sagittarius Palace. After all, it was no longer realistic to want to escape. Fighting was the only way out. Everyone, it's time to show your strength. As long as we get rid of these 12 guardians, we will get the inheritance of a female empress. The old man with the broken sword trembled. It was unknown whether he was excited or agitated. Just now, the Taurus warrior said very clearly that those who blasphemed the Shintian empress would be killed without mercy. In the temple, an emperor stage powerhouse was buried. Moreover, the old man with the broken sword had no doubt that it must be the strongest among Emperor Yuan, the 9-star great emperor, an existence infinitely close to a god. After getting her inheritance, they could do whatever they wanted in the entire divine wilderness continent. Of course, there was one place they couldn't go, and that was the sunset peak of the sunset battle god. Do you want to perish in despair, or do you want to kill your way out of death? Kill. Qin Hao let out a shocking roar. In a flash, the great void divine sword appeared in his hand. He said, "Okay, brother-in-law, I know." "Okay," erupted with a dazzling 7-colored light. Amidst the light, the noble rainbow skylark appeared, shocking everyone present. Everyone watched as Qin Hao turned over and stepped on K.'s back, charging bravely towards the archers in the sky. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 1217. Terrifying 12 Zodiacs. Xiao was the only one who could fly. If Qin Hao didn't intercept the archers and let him shoot arrows from the sky, the martial artists below would undoubtedly become live targets. Moreover, his arrows would severely affect the martial artist's battle with the other 12 Zodiacs warriors. Either we perish in despair, or we fight our way out. Fight! I Wu Lao have been a coward my entire life. Today I'll rise. Kill! Shocking shouts continued to explode. More than 50 balls of vitality rose at the same time. The hoarse roars made everyone's blood boil. Xiao was a high-level demonic beast with the bloodline of a beast emperor. Her transformation was indeed very shocking. However, the martial artists didn't have the time to be shocked. Each of them brought out their special skills and faced the 11 golden warriors. Other than the dead rhinoceros martial artist, the other 9 Essence Soul Realm martial artists all released their Essence Souls. The remaining people either released their contracted beasts from their space rings, drew out their most powerful weapons, or took out their final trump cards that they would only use in a life-and-death situation. It seemed that everyone knew that whoever held back at this time would die the fastest. Among them, the old man with the broken sword actually fought 2 golden warriors alone. His cultivation of the 5th level of the Emperor stage was fully unleashed. He knew very well that it was impossible. With one more enemy tied down, the pressure on the martial artist would increase and the number of casualties would rise sharply. If the martial artists were defeated, the old man with the broken sword would undoubtedly die. Although it was impossible for him to defeat 2 golden warriors at the same time with his cultivation. However, he was still confident that he could only delay the opponent and maintain an undefeated position. The coffin-carrying man was also extraordinarily brave. He didn't call for anyone's help and fought a golden warrior alone. Although there was one less golden warrior than the old man with the broken sword, the opponent he chose was the strongest and most explosive warrior from the Taurus Palace. It seemed that he knew very well that other than him, there was no other martial artist here who could take a punch from the Taurus Palace warrior. He could only brace himself and take it. You old ghost with the broken sword, you've hidden your strength so well. You're actually a 5th level Emperor stage. The coffin-carrying man roared like a tiger and released his essence soul. It overlapped with a black coffin of good fortune on his shoulder. His aura was greatly increased compared to when he faced the Sagittarius Palace. He hugged the black coffin and slammed it into the Taurus Palace warrior's abdomen. You're not bad either. However, be careful of your little life being smashed by the Taurus warrior. With his hands behind his back, the old man with the broken sword flashed here and there. From time to time, his shoulders would shake, and his ancient sword would explode with a few spiraling yuan qi to block the attacks of the two golden warriors. Until now, 4 out of the 12 golden palaces had been successfully blocked. Qin Hao and Ke had intercepted the Sagittarius Palace. The coffin bearers faced the Taurus constellation alone. The old man with the broken sword fought the Aries Temple and the Balance Temple. More than 50 Yuan venerates formed groups of 3 to 5 and engaged in a battle with the remaining 8 palaces. Brothers, do your best. Release your contracted beasts and attack with all your might. Kill. When the warriors saw how brave Qin Hao and the coffin bearers were, especially the broken sword old man, who was able to block the 2 golden warriors, they couldn't help but feel encouraged. Their confidence was greatly boosted. Following the roars of beasts, more than a dozen ordinary martial artists contracted beasts joined the fray. The weakest among them was a peak beast king, while the majority of them were beast venerates. In terms of numbers and combat strength, the overall strength of the warriors had increased by another level. However, as soon as the martial artist who gave the order shouted out, a glowing water spear pierced through his brain from a distance, turning it into mush. His contracted beast let out a sorrowful cry and crawled on the ground, twitching violently. Following the death of its master, it eventually died with blood flowing out of its 7 orifices. Many of the contracted beasts of the continent's martial list had signed unfair slave contracts. Once their masters died, these pitiful demonic beasts would also be affected by the contract and die tragically. In the sky, when the 12-winged Sagittarius Palace saw that a monarch had dared to provoke it while riding a skylark, it couldn't help but disdainfully take out a golden arrow and notch it on its bowstring. With a whoosh, the golden arrow seemed to tear through space and time as it appeared in front of Qin Hao in an instant. 1,000 feather stream strike. Chao flapped her rainbow-colored wings that were more than 10 meters long, stirring up 2 violent whirlwinds. Behind the whirlwinds was a dense cloud of feathers that flew out like small arrows. They followed closely behind the 2 whirlwinds and blasted forward. Bang, bang. The 2 whirlwinds were easily destroyed by the golden arrow. Amid the clanging sounds of collision, the golden arrow brought along a trail of sparks. Any feathers that collided with the golden arrow were swiftly and fiercely shattered. As for K.'s other arrows, they landed on the Sagittarius warrior's body, but were all blocked by the majestic golden battle armor. It was as if a dense cloud of tiny silver needles had collided with a steel plate, powerlessly sliding off without leaving a single mark. In the end, the golden arrow did not slow down and directly pierced into Qin Hao's brain. What terrifying finger and wrist strength! Qin Hao's eyes burned with fighting spirit. Holding the sword with both hands, with a buzz, his body expanded and a row of dragon scales appeared on his face. 50% of the dragon's power shatter. With a loud roar, Qin Hao leaped from Ke-Er's back and slashed at the golden arrow with his sword. Clang! Amidst the sound of metal striking, Qin Hao's head was thrown back. Boiling hot blood spurted out, and his body flew out diagonally. Brother-in-law, be careful. Ke-Er flapped her wings and hurriedly caught Qin Hao, who had flown out on her back. However, the golden arrow was also extremely bent by Qin Hao's slash and fell from the sky. The Sagittarius Palace warrior was very surprised. He lowered his head and looked at the golden battle bow in his hand, as if doubting the power of the golden battle bow. It cannot even kill a mere king-stage human. The difference in strength is too great. Moreover, my great void sword has not recovered to the level of a venerable artifact. Qin Hao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the great void sword in his hand with a pained expression. The flames on the sword body were extinguished and some fine cracks had appeared. Although it was a divine artifact, after 600 years of consumption and the loss of spiritual energy, its grade had dropped. It had not been easy for it to be upgraded to the peak of a king artifact in the past 5 years, but it had almost been destroyed by an arrow, as expected of an emperor stage martial artist. The great void sword can't withstand the power of his arrow. I can't use it anymore. Qin Hao decisively put the sword back into the spatial ring. He would have to repair it later. In fact, it was not just the great void sword. Even Qin Hao, who believed that his physical body was strong and did not fear anyone in a head-on confrontation, was completely crushed this time. Just as the coffin-carrying man said, the Sagittarius Palace warrior's cultivation had reached the level of a third-stage origin emperor with a single arrow. This had exceeded the scope of Qin Hao, who was in the heavenly cycle realm. Moreover, Qin Hao faintly felt that a third-stage origin emperor was far from the true level of the Sagittarius Palace. If he unleashed all of his combat power, he would be even more abnormal. You can't fight him head-on. His true realm is that of a half-step Yuan emperor. Not only him, but all the warriors of the 12 palaces below are made up of half-step Yuan emperors. If they go crazy and join forces, even if you were in your peak state in your previous life, you would lose a layer of skin even if you did not die. Suddenly, F.A. Xiang's stern warning sounded in his mind. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 1218. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation The Falling Skylark. What? Qin Hao was shocked. Can't you feel it? Due to some special reasons, Sagittarius Palace is unable to unleash its full strength. Furthermore, after fighting with the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearer, his strength is rapidly weakening. F.A. Xiang sat cross-legged in Qin Hao's dantian, holding a large detection disc in his hand and wretchedly probing Sagittarius Palace. Although it was only for a moment, when Sagittarius Palace stood out from behind the Yuanjing mountain, the aura that was initially revealed was indeed that of a half-step emperor. The detection disc was very accurate, and F.A. Xiang firmly believed that he did not see wrongly. He guessed that it was probably because the spiritual energy of the Yuanjing mountain had been sucked away, causing the 12 Zodiac's warriors to lose their source of power, causing their strength to continuously decline. The reason why Sagittarius Palace worked hard to stabilize their realm at the third stage of the primitive emperor realm was probably because they did not want to accelerate the consumption of their power. Including every gold warrior below, their realms are all maintained at the third stage of the primitive emperor realm. It seems that Sagittarius Palace has the ability to lead and is commanding the entire situation. F.A. Xiang analyzed. Upon hearing that, Qin Hao lowered his head and looked down. The battle below was unusually intense, fresh blood was everywhere, and the number of deaths of martial artists was constantly increasing. The 8 golden warriors that were fighting against them, including the Ares temple and Libra temple that the old man with the broken sword was fighting against, and the Taurus temple that the coffin bearer was fighting against, were all fighting steadily, advancing and retreating in an orderly manner. They were very much like a well-disciplined unit, obviously under orders. The person commanding them was the flying Sagittarius Palace. By eliminating Sagittarius Palace, the battle situation may be reversed, or even the defense line of the 12 Zodiacs will collapse and end the battle directly. F.A. Xiang said. What weakness does he have? Qin Hao's burning eyes stared at Sagittarius Palace, seeing the hope of victory. F.A. Xiang was silent, his finger pressed on the dazzling light spot that belonged to Sagittarius Palace. Buzz. A layer of halo shook off the big disk, and a data display appeared. Name, Sagittarius Palace of the 12 Zodiacs. Realm, third stage of the primitive emperor realm, unstable vitality, may suddenly increase. Combat style, skilled in archery, exhausting or killing enemies from a long distance. Extremely skilled in archery. Advantage, Sagittarius Palace's 12-winged battle suit. Art flying art, 3 times faster than those of the same realm. The defense of the armor is peak grade 9 peak emperor equipment boom. When he saw this, Qin Hao was so shocked that his head almost exploded. With his current abilities, even if the archer did not resist and stood there for Qin Hao to kill, there was nothing Qin Hao could do. This Li Wanji is going to die because of him. Qin Hao cursed in his heart. But then the disc finally pointed out a way to survive. Conclusion. The archery of the Sagittarius Palace surpasses the current level of archery in the continent. It is extremely dangerous. Avoid long-range combat. If you don't, you will die. However, his soul is weak, which is his only weakness. It is recommended that we launch a huge spiritual attack to annihilate his weak spiritual sense. Note, before using the mental attack, you must break through Sagittarius Palace's armor because his armor has the ability to resist mental attacks. F***CK. Qin Hao could not help but swear. It was as if a ray of light was born in front of him, but the light was immediately swallowed by darkness. Breaking a peak Imperial artifact? Based on his current abilities? You must be dreaming. It's not that there is no chance. Sagittarius Palace's power has been weakening. Without the support of vitality, the armor is just a dead object. You are a big man. Can't you even take off a piece of clothing? If you can't do it, let me do it. Of course, you and a rainbow cloud have to attract his attention first, giving me and Go Z a chance to launch a sneak attack, Fa Xiang said. He put away the scouting disc and stood up with the sky-extinguishing spear in his hand. It was time to use Cloud Dragon Seed Earner. Stay here quietly. Unless it is absolutely necessary, you and Brother Go are not allowed to show yourselves. I can handle it myself. Qin Hao shouted. Fa Xiang, Brother Go, and the Golden Bell Protection were his last trump cards and killing moves. He had to save them to deal with Broken Sword, Old Man, and Coffin Bears. He could not waste them on Sagittarius Palace. All right, I look forward to your performance. Fa Xiang shrugged his shoulders and sat back down in his dantian. Creak. A hair-raising sound of a bow was heard. Perhaps they had sensed that Qin Hao was a little abnormal. Sagittarius Palace took the initiative to attack. This time, 3 golden arrows were placed on the bowstring. He pulled his arm into the shape of a full moon. Under the helmet, his sharp eyes locked on a Qin Hao. Danger! An extremely dangerous aura assaulted him. Qin Hao shivered subconsciously. This feeling of being targeted was very similar to the feeling of dying in front of the 9 Heavens God's Punishment Array. Little Care, listen up. From now on, you will fly however I tell you to. When I count to 3, immediately throw me towards the Sagittarius Palace. This is our only hope of survival. Do you understand? At this moment, Qin Hao could even predict the path of the arrows. After all, he was once the continent's top archer. Qin Hao's archery skills were even stronger than the Arrow Emperor's. Brother-in-law, you must survive. Sister is still waiting for us. Boo-hoo. Although she was not sure what Qin Hao wanted to do and how he was going to win, Kerr was still willing to cooperate with him. However, Kerr did her best to cooperate by nodding her head. She did not have a trace of her previous willfulness. However, she also knew that if Qin Hao did not succeed in the next exchange, they would not be able to return. Good girl, don't cry. I said that I would protect you and Han, and not let you be bullied by anyone. How can you die? Diagonally upwards, 30 meters in height. Turn left for 10 meters, then go straight for 1,000 meters. It's coming. Qin Hao anxiously ordered the flight path. As a top archer, Qin Hao could predict where the other party was going to shoot even the slightest movement or look. As expected, as soon as he finished speaking, the first arrow came flying. At this moment, Carrot did not hold back and unleashed the power of a beast venerable. Her body was extremely agile as she obeyed Qin Hao's orders. Diagonally upwards, 30 meters in height. Whoosh! The first arrow brushed past K.'s left wing. 3 blood-stained feathers were left on the golden arrow. A bloody tear appeared below K.'s left wing. K.'s reaction was indeed very fast. Her speed was perfect and could be said to be extraordinary. Even so, this arrow almost took her life. Girl! Qin Hao's heart ached. He clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. The flames in his eyes seemed to be able to spurt out and burn the Sagittarius Palace to ashes. K.'r did not reply. Her left wing was dripping with blood. Enduring the pain, she flew 30 meters diagonally. Suddenly, She made a sharp turn and flew 90 degrees to the left with Qin Hao. Coincidentally, this position was where the Sagittarius Palace's second arrow was coming. However, Qin Hao had already predicted this. As a shadow glided past, suddenly flew 1,000 meters in a straight line and avoided the danger of being hit by the second arrow. Even so, the second arrow still caused a bloody line to appear on Keir's body. Screech! The rainbow skylark cried out in pain in the sky. As the two arrows flew past, her and Qin Hao's life and death were decided in an instant. At this moment, Keir flew 1,000 meters forward. Her body was almost right in front of the Sagittarius Palace. She flung Qin Hao with all her might and slammed him into the back of the Sagittarius Palace. Whoosh! The third arrow pierced through the sky, bringing with it a beautiful rainbow. This rainbow was the color of blood. Immediately after, a skylark's body fell in front of Qin Hao's eyes. Keir's right leg had been pierced through by a golden arrow. "I'll take your life." Qin Hao let out an earth-shattering roar. He activated 75% of his dragon power. His body expanded to about 4 meters. His clothes were torn apart by his muscles and turned into rags. His sharp and ferocious dragon claws pressed down on the Sagittarius Palace's helmet. Like a monster descending from the sky, Qin Hao rode on the Sagittarius Palace's neck. Please remember the domain name of this book, Nine Heavens Divine Emperor mobile version website. Chapter 1219. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Step into the Supreme Realm. 3 arrows were shot consecutively, each one hitting Xiao Er. The last one pierced her leg. With the terrifying power of the arrows, Xiao was most likely going to be crippled. Qin Hao wasn't even sure if the golden arrows had the ability to destroy the body, like the sunset arrows. If that was the case, Xiao Er's internal organs would be shattered and her meridians would be torn apart. She might even turn into a corpse. I just made an oath to not allow anyone to hurt Xiao Er and Xiao Han. Yet, you trampled on my oath and hurt the people I care about the most in front of me. Go to hell. Qin Hao's blood was gushing out like a fountain. The call of brother-in-law was still echoing in his mind. It was so cute. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a violent gorilla. He stepped on the shoulders of the Sagittarius Palace and pulled the armor up with both hands. Creak! It was a sound that made one's teeth ache. Perhaps his anger had increased his strength. With this tug, the armor and the helmet actually showed signs of being separated. The Sagittarius Palace was in a panic. It seemed that this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The 12 wings on his back flapped fiercely at Qin Hao. Pa! The first strike. The dragon scales were all smashed by the wings and fell down from Qin Hao's back with a clatter. Pa! The second strike was stronger and fiercer than the first. Qin Hao's skin was torn open. Bang! When the third strike landed, Qin Hao's back was deformed. His body almost flew out. He spat out a large mouthful of blood onto the Sagittarius Palace. However, his palm strength on the armor was even stronger. The armor was being pulled out of shape and lengthened bit by bit. Stop, human, stop! The 12 wings of the Sagittarius Palace were still attacking Qin Hao. Each strike was fiercer than the last. Even though Qin Hao was badly mutilated, the strength of the palm holding the armor didn't decrease at all. He was about to be pulled out of the armor. Respectable warrior, this is the end. The soul of Empress Xiantian cannot be disturbed by anyone. Die! Qin Hao's tenacity and perseverance moved the Sagittarius Palace deeply. However, it was his mission to protect the Empress. At this moment, he unleashed all of his strength, and his realm rose rapidly from the 3rd Order Primitive Emperor to the 8th Order in an instant. Level 8 was his limit. The spiritual energy in his body was only enough to rush to this level. The consumption of time caused the Sagittarius Palace to be unable to return to the glory of the half-step Yuan the Arch. Instantly, an explosive surge of vital qi gushed out from his golden armor like a tsunami. With a loud boom, it slammed into Qin Hao's body. Puff! Qin Hao was blown away by this tyrannical force like a falling leaf. His palms, which were holding the helmet, were pale and powerless. His huge body was blown away. His consciousness was blurred, and his vitality was fading away quickly. He was still too weak. A Peak King-level expert couldn't withstand the power of an 8th-stage primitive emperor, even if it was just a casual burst of aura. Am I going to die? Qin Hao murmured in his heart. Using his last bit of strength, his hands grabbed in front of him, trying to grab onto the opponent's armor. However, he was getting further and further away from the Sagittarius Temple. He had never thought that he would be trapped in the Hidden Dragon's secret realm, opened by Li Wanji the moment he arrived in the southern region. Moreover, he had never thought that he would encounter such a powerful enemy like the Sagittarius Palace. He was separated from the old demon and Xiaohan. He even sacrificed K.'s life. He was really unwilling and regretful. He regretted his rashness. He was unwilling because he didn't fulfill his long-cherished wish of this life. He didn't step onto the Sunset Peak to fight with Zhang Wu, and he didn't kick that bitch Han Lingxian off the throne. Hee, you are really sad. You are so weak that you can't even handle a puny primitive emperor. In the haze, a majestic figure appeared in his mind. This person had dark skin, and he was laughing at Qin Hao with his arms crossed. It was Zhang Wu. I already said that you can't become a god, and that there's no future in being your companion. It seems like I was right. Beside Zhang Wu, another woman appeared. She had an arrogant expression, a cold expression, and contempt in her eyes. It was Han Lingxian. They looked at Qin Hao as if they were looking at a clown. They watched him struggle, despair, and die unwillingly. Han Lingxian, Zhang Wu. Suddenly, Qin Hao woke up from his hazy state. His eyes widened, and he wanted to tear the people in front of him apart. Wake up, wake up. You can't die yet. Roar, 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 woof, woof. After waking up, Qin Hao immediately heard Fa Xiang and Brother Dog's anxious calls. Moreover, there was an ancient power flowing from his heart to his whole body, repairing Qin Hao's broken body and meridians. In addition, the 12 streams of spiritual energy that wrapped around the blood essence suddenly separated into a white light and rushed into his dantian, driving it to work. The majestic spiritual energy spread through his 8 extraordinary meridians and spread throughout his whole body. A muffled boom resounded. There was the sound of a barrier breaking in his body. Qin Hao's half-dragon body that was repaired by the blood essence had a dazzling purple flame rising. He had successfully stepped into the revered level. The bottleneck that he couldn't break through for days was forcibly broken. The stormy waves of power flowed through his body, making Qin Hao feel that his body was full. I broke through. He was surprised, but he didn't have time to be excited. Whoosh! The blood essence in his heart suddenly separated into a red light and broke out of his body. It was like a scorpion tail that disappeared into the armor of the Sagittarius Palace that was flying in the air. The Sagittarius Palace let out an unprecedented scream. It held its head with both hands and seemed to be in extreme pain. It seemed that its spiritual energy was fatally damaged. Suddenly, the defense door opened wide. Good chance. Good chance. Woof, woof, woof. Qin Hao and Fa Xiang shouted at the same time. Even Brother Dog barked 3 times. Red Lotus Fire. How could he miss such a rare opportunity? Qin Hao pushed out his palms and released 2 strong flames. He didn't attack the Sagittarius Palace, but the huge light shield above the courtyard. Buzz! The 2 flames collided with the light barrier, creating a huge ripple. When a rebounding force came, Qin Hao's palm seemed to have found a point of support. His flying body was like an arrow that pierced through the air. With a whoosh, he shot back towards the Sagittarius Palace. He was sure that the blood essence had caused immeasurable damage to the Sagittarius Palace, but it wasn't enough to completely defeat them. Qin Hao had to go up and finish them off. Break for me. Once again, he stepped on the shoulders of the Sagittarius Palace like an ape. At this moment, Qin Hao's state was even stronger than before. His battle power had reached its peak. because he had stepped into the revered level. Although the revered level was only one level away from the king level, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. After entering the revered level, the art of indestructible samsara increased another level and opened the 8th layer. In addition, the red lotus fire, tranquil water, as well as the dragon soul, these 3 souls' power and half-god's body were all strengthened. In the past, Qin Hao was abnormal enough. Now, he was even more abnormal. 76% of the power of the dragon. With a hoarse shout, Qin Hao took advantage of the fact that the Sagittarius Palace's consciousness was in a mess and couldn't fight back. He grabbed the golden battle helmet with both hands and pulled it up with all his might. Bang! The Yuan Venerate level activated 76% of the power of the dragon and pulled off the battle helmet. What was shocking was that below the battle helmet, there was actually no head. Please remember the domain name of this book. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 1220. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation breaking through the 12 palaces. Qin Hao stepped on the shoulders of the Sagittarius Palace. Looking down from his angle, the interior of the armor was empty and dark. There was only a thin wisp of white spiritual energy floating around. There was no physical support at all. In other words, this Sagittarius Palace warrior, and even the other golden warriors were fighting with the warriors on the ground, were all wearing a suit of armor. They were the work of Empress Xiantian. It was these armors, supported by the desolate spiritual consciousness, that protected Empress Xiantian without any complaints. Great warrior, the Sagittarius Palace admits defeat. Before the spiritual consciousness disappears, please accept my remaining power and step into the temple. There was no need to continue fighting. Qin Hao did not even need to release his mind power to destroy the remaining spiritual consciousness of the Sagittarius Palace. This thin wisp of spiritual energy flew out of the armor and entered Qin Hao's chest, merging with the 12 wisps of spiritual energy that wrapped the divine demon blood essence. In an instant, the 12 wisps of spiritual energy were replenished, shaking out a sacred halo. Whoosh! The 12-winged battle suit under Qin Hao's feet separated. Strangely, it was put on by Qin Hao one by one. Ignoring Qin Hao's body size, the breastplate enlarged, the wrist guards enlarged, the leg guards, knee guards, and even the helmet in Qin Hao's hand flew out and expanded, landing on top of his head. Crack! The face shield closed, and the 12 wings trembled. At this moment, Qin Hao, with the golden bow in his hand and the golden arrows on his back, looked like the incarnation of the Sagittarius Palace if he did not open the mask. However, Qin Hao's dragonized body was much more majestic than the Sagittarius Palace. It has recognized you as its master. From now on, this set of golden armor is yours. Fa Xiang's voice sounded in his mind, full of jealousy. Even Brother Dog snorted in dissatisfaction. If he had known this would happen, he would have let them fight. Then, Fa Xiang or Brother Dog would be the last to wear the armor. But now that the armor had recognized Qin Hao as its master, even Fa Xiang could not control it. I accidentally picked up a whole set of peak-level Imperial weapons, and they're all peak level. Qin Hao lowered his head and looked at the powerful golden bow in his hands. He clenched his right fist and felt a little dreamy. But this kind of feeling was really awesome. Whoosh! Before Qin Hao could be proud of himself, the Sagittarius Palace armor on his body degenerated from the golden color to the silver color, and its gray dropped to the level of a venerable artifact. F***CK. Qin Hao cursed. Of course, he also knew that the grade of the armor was automatically lowered to make it easier for him to use it. After all, silver armor was more suitable for Qin Hao's current situation than gold armor, and could maximize his ability. What a great Empress Xiantian! Her means have reached the peak of perfection. Qin Hao praised sincerely. No one knew how long Empress Xiantian had been dead. Even the works she left behind were so powerful. Her ability was not any weaker than Qin Hao's in his previous life. Well, Qin Hao admitted that Empress Xiantian was a little stronger than him, but she was only better at forging weapons. If it was a competition of alchemy, Qin Hao believed that he would not lose. After dealing with the Sagittarius Palace, the wings on Qin Hao's back flapped, and his body floated in the air as he looked down. TSK. Miserable. It was really miserable. More than half of the more than 50 yuan venerate martialists were dead or injured, and all the contract beasts were dead. 3 of the 9 essence soul martialists were left. Among them, there was a sword soul martialist, a female black python martialist, and a martialist with an essence soul hammer. However, these 3 people were also on the verge of death. Qin Hao could see that they would definitely die in the hands of the Golden Warriors in less than 3 rounds. The attack power of a sword soul martialist was very strong, so it was normal for them to hold on until now. Qin Hao was a little surprised that the female black python martialist was still alive. However, after seeing the corpse of the female black python martialist's senior brother, Qin Hao was relieved. His senior brother's body had been split in half. Perhaps he had blocked a fatal blow for the female black python martialist. Or perhaps he had been unprepared and had been pushed out by the female black python martialist as a scapegoat. However, this had nothing to do with Qin Hao. His spirit consciousness swept across the battlefield, and in the next second, he accurately found K.'s position. The 12 wings on his back flapped, and Qin Hao swooped down quickly like an arrow. In a corner of the battlefield, the battle was still ongoing. One of the battle groups was very unique because the people in this group were not fighting with the Golden Warriors. To be more precise, the gold-ranked warrior was protected by an array formation, with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Without a doubt, other than Qin Hao, the only person who had the ability to set up an array formation was Ning Chaofan. However, Ning Chaofan, who was inside the array formation shield, did not have it easy. His face was extremely pale, and his body was trembling because of fear. He stared at the Lion Palace's warriors outside the array formation, who were attacking the array formation shield. Every time the Lion Palace's warriors landed a punch, the light of the array formation shield would rapidly weaken. At the foot of the Lion Palace, there were also 3 corpses of martial artists and a demonic beast. Thinking about it, they must have been killed by the Lion Palace in order to buy time for Ning Chaofan to set up the array formation. At this moment, beside Ning Chaofan, a black-clothed subordinate of the Ning family had lost an arm. His hair was disheveled, and there was a hole in his abdomen. Blood was gushing out, but he was clenching his teeth and holding on. On the ground behind Ning Chaofan, there was a girl lying on the ground. The girl was covered in blood, and her right calf had been pierced by a golden arrow. Her breathing was weak, as if she was fighting against the god of death. She would not be able to hold on for much longer. "Young master, why did you save her? Her brother-in-law humiliated you." The black-clothed subordinate turned around to look at K.', his eyes filled with hatred. If it weren't for the fact that he had to protect the heavily injured K. The 3 martial artists who had been bribed by the Ning family and the contract beast of one of the martial artists wouldn't die so easily. The black-clothed subordinate himself would not have lost an arm, and his abdomen would not have been pierced. With Ning Chaofan's source spirit, as well as the 3 martial artists and the contract beast, they had more than enough time to deal with the Lion Palace's warriors. But in order to protect K, in just a few breaths of time, he had been injured to this extent. Fortunately, Ning Chaofan had successfully set up the array formation. Although it had consumed a large amount of spiritual materials, it had temporarily blocked the wild attacks of the Lion Palace. Unfortunately, the black-clothed subordinate raised his head to look at the array formation shield. This shield would not be able to hold on for much longer. Perhaps the next punch would break through it. "I am sincere in taking you as my master. Her brother-in-law is my master, so I have the responsibility to protect her. Furthermore, I firmly believe that my master will be able to defeat the Sagittarius Palace in the sky." Ning Chaofan clenched his fists nervously even though he was deceiving himself. He was a mid-stage, level 7 Yuan Venerate, yet he could not even block a single attack from the Lion Palace after releasing his source spirit. How could a puny Yuan monarch like Qin Hao defeat the Sagittarius Palace? Furthermore, without K.'s help, Qin Hao would not be able to fly. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion erupted overhead. As Ning Chaofan pondered this, the array formation was finally broken by the Lion Palace. A golden fist was getting closer and closer to Ning Chaofan's head. PFFF. The shockwave of the explosion sent the black-clothed subordinate flying, causing blood to spurt out all over his body. Young master, run. Don't bother about that woman anymore. Your life is more valuable than hers. However, Ning Chaofan stood rooted to the ground and did not move an inch. Run? Where could he run to? Run around in circles in the courtyard. That would only delay the time of his death. As long as the 12 golden warriors were not destroyed, no one would be able to escape. Furthermore, as long as Ning Chaofan took a single step, the heavily injured K would be exposed to the Lion Palace's fist. Looks like my master still did not succeed. However, even a greater ray formation master like him has fallen here. What's there to pity if I, Ning Chaofan, die? Ning Chaofan spread his arms, and the scissors' origin spirit appeared behind him. He pushed out his palms, and the scissors met the Lion Palace's fist head-on. Please remember the domain name of this book, Nine Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version website. Chapter 12:21. The Returning Soldier's Palm. The scissors exploded. Leo Palace's figure only paused for a moment before the fist came again. Ning Chaofan took 3 steps back. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. He could not condense his source spirit in a short period of time. He smiled bitterly in his heart. His all-out attack had only stopped Leo Palace's fist for a moment. The difference was too great. At this moment, he closed his eyes and gave up struggling. Perhaps only death could end this nightmare. However, just as he closed his eyes, the sound of space being torn apart could be heard above his head. A majestic figure descended from the sky. Its size was comparable to the Taurus temples. Both of its feet shook the ground, causing the earth to tremble and the mountains to shake. With a loud explosion, it blocked the Leo temple's fist. Then, Ning Chaofan opened his eyes. He realized that he was not dead. In front of him, a majestic figure appeared. This person was very tall, and his size was comparable to Taurus Palace's. This person's aura was even fiercer than Leo Palace's. Moreover, he was wearing Sagittarius Palace's battle armor. Although the color was different, Ning Chaofan did not see wrong. It was indeed Sagittarius Palace's 12-winged battle armor. What's going on? Ning Chaofan was a little confused. He rubbed his eyes. Did Sagittarius Palace betray the 12 Zodiac Palaces? Did they come here to save him? Before he could figure out the situation, he was shocked to see the large man's thick and sturdy arms. They were as flexible as silk dancing in the wind. In the blink of an eye, they wrapped around Leo Palace's arm. The palm that was as large as a banana leaf pressed down on Leo Palace's shoulder and pulled down. Kacha! Leo Palace's entire right arm was torn off. It was Qin Hao's close combat technique, bone-crushing dragon hand. Loyal soul, rest in peace, Qin Hao said in a low voice. 2 large hands stretched out. Under Ning Chaofan's frightened expression, he grabbed Leo Palace's body and slammed it to the ground. Pung! With this forceful throw, the Lion Palace armor shattered all over the ground. At the same time, a thin stream of white spiritual energy flew out from the gold-colored equipment on the ground and instantly entered Qin Hao's chest, fusing with the 12 streams of spiritual energy. The 12 rays of spiritual energy trembled and were strengthened again. This. Ning Chaofan was so shocked that he couldn't even speak. The incomparably powerful Leo Palace, a terrifying enemy that could easily kill a Yuan Venerate powerhouse with a wave of its fist, an existence that had once caused Ning Chaofan to fall into despair, could not even withstand a single blow and had been smashed into smithereens by the big Sagittarius palace. Ning Chaofan had the urge to faint. However, when Qinhao turned around and stared at him with a pair of scarlet eyes under the mask, Ning Chaofan's urge to faint suddenly disappeared. There was only one thought in his mind: run. Facing the powerful Liu Palace, he could still suppress the fear in his heart. However, Ning Chaofan didn't even know what the word restraint meant when the big guy suddenly appeared in front of him. Just as he was about to run, crack, Qin Hao's mask opened, revealing half of his face covered in dragon scales. He said in a low voice, "You didn't see anything just now. Do you understand?" "Yes, yes, yes." Ning Chaofan nodded his head like a chick pecking rice. He heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Even though this face was covered in scales, he still recognized Qin Hao's appearance. Praise the heavens! Teacher didn't die. Then, a dazzling brilliance suddenly flashed. Qin Hao dispelled his dragon form and returned to his normal size. The 12-wing battle armor also disappeared and merged with his body. Just like the silver wind leopard armor, once the battle armor recognized its owner, it couldn't be taken away by anyone unless Qin Hao died. "Little girl, I'm back." Qin Hao squatted down and hugged Kei Er's head in his arms. His throat was a little sore, and it was very uncomfortable to be choking. Kei Er's forehead was full of blood, her face was pale, and her breathing was very weak. "Brother-in-law, you've succeeded," Kei said as she opened her eyes weakly. "Yes, quickly take this medicine. Brother-in-law will heal you." Qin Hao took out a 7th-grade life extending pill and threw it into Kei Er's mouth. Kei Er tried hard to swallow it, but she couldn't because her neck was broken. Qin Hao's eyes were red, and he felt even more uncomfortable. He gathered a ball of tranquil water in his palm and poured it into Kei Er's mouth, forcing the medicine into her stomach. Then, he laid Kei Er flat on the ground. His palms surged with brilliance, and he stroked her body bit by bit. Kei Er's injuries were very serious. Her internal organs were ruptured, and although her meridians weren't broken, they were damaged in many places. She must have been injured by the arrows released by the Sagittarius Palace. In the eyes of others, it was time to prepare for her funeral. However, the tranquil water was one of the 9 great elements of the mortal realm. It could bring flesh back to bone and revive the dead. As long as there was still a breath left, Qin Hao had the ability to snatch Kei Er back from the hands of the Grim Reaper. Ning Chaofan waited quietly at the side. He didn't dare to disturb Qin Hao's treatment of Kei Er. He was vigilant of his surroundings and stood guard for Qin Hao. He also began to observe the situation of the battle. The casualties of the ancient martial art practitioners in the courtyard continued to increase. However, they were no longer easily killed. Because the Sagittarius Palace, which commanded the 12 palaces, had been destroyed, the gold-ranked warriors were obviously in disarray. They were no longer as close to each other as before. In addition, their strength was draining too quickly. If they could kill a certain ancient martial art practitioner in one move at the beginning, now they would need at least 5 or even 10 moves before they could succeed. They might not even be able to kill the ancient martial art practitioner in 10 moves. At most, they would severely injure them. Furthermore, as time passed, the ancient martial art practitioners gradually gained the strength to counterattack. Ning Chaofan saw with his own eyes that an ancient martial art practitioner whose cultivation level was even lower than his had actually defeated a certain gold-ranked warrior. Ning Chaofan thought that he was hallucinating. Even the ancient martial art practitioner himself thought that it was a hallucination. However, everyone could clearly sense that the gold-ranked warrior had entered a weakened state. "Ha ha! You damned golden bull! Have you finally run out of energy? Then die tragically." A deafening roar of a tiger came from afar. Ning Chaofan looked over. He saw the coffin-bearer with a bloody nose and a swollen face. Half of his teeth had fallen out, and his face was swollen like a pig's head. He probably didn't even recognize his own mother. He picked up his huge black coffin and slammed it heavily on the back of the slow Taurus palace. Boom! The huge body of the Taurus palace fell to the ground. The gold-ranked equipment scattered. A streak of white spiritual energy quietly flew out from the equipment at a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye. It flew to Ning Chaofan and entered Qin Hao's back, merging with the 12 streaks of spiritual energy. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, the gold-ranked figures fell. Just a moment ago, they were still filled with murderous intent. Now, they were only left with desolation and sorrow. Time had worn away their spiritual awareness. The spiritual energy of the Yuanchang mountain had been snatched away, and they had lost their source of replenishment. These guardians were not humans, but they were more loyal than humans. Empress Xintian, who had used up her last bit of energy to accompany him, turned into pitiful dust under the cruel bombardment of the warriors. At the same time, as each of the gold-ranked figures fell to the ground, a thin streak of spiritual energy would fly away from the scattered gold-ranked equipment. Without anyone noticing, the streaks of spiritual energy entered Qin Hao's body. It's over. The last two trash puppets go to hell. The broken sword elder roared. The ancient sword on his back was suddenly unsheathed. It split into two above his head, turning into two streaks of fierce sword light. Puff! It passed through the armor of the Ares Palace and the Libra Palace. The armor of the Ares Palace and the Libra Palace dispersed. The two streaks of spiritual energy flew away in the blink of an eye. They flew to Qin Hao and merged with the 12 streaks of spiritual energy in his body. At the moment when the 12 palaces were all killed, the roar of the 12 warriors seemed to resound in the courtyard. My Emperor, see you in the next life. This voice was sacred and solemn. It had no regrets. Please remember the domain name of this book, the mobile version of the Jiuqian Divine Emperor. Chapter 1222. I'm very gentle looking at the corpses of the warriors in the courtyard. The survivors felt like they had just survived a disaster. No one touched the equipment on the ground, including the broken sword elder and the coffin bearers. The battered and exhausted people sat on the ground, trying to recover their strength in the shortest time possible. They did not know if there would be any more danger. They only knew that if they did not recover their strength quickly, they would not be able to protect the gold equipment in front of them, not to mention the great Empress inheritance in the temple. Those who had lived until now were not fools. They were all smart people. Those who needed to eat pills did so. Those who did not use crystals to recover or gnawed on herbs. They were all busy recovering, and no one dared to start a fight to break the balance. After Qin Hao's treatment, K.Er, who had just escaped death, woke up. She hugged Qin Hao and cried, "Brother-in-law, I thought I was dead for sure, woo-woo. It's okay, it's all in the past." Qin Hao hugged K.Er and patted her back. As expected of the tranquil water, its healing and recovery abilities were very strong. K.Er's damaged meridians and internal organs had almost recovered. Hiss! Ning Chaofan took a deep breath and looked at Qin Hao in shock. His teacher was actually a warrior with a healing-type source spirit, and he had 2 souls. No wonder, at this moment, he finally understood why Qin Hao could withstand the pressure that others could not withstand and step on the 6th platform. The source spirit's amplification effect was very strong. A warrior with 1 soul could cross 2 or even 3 levels to kill an enemy. Qin Hao had 2 souls, and his 2nd source spirit was a healing type. He could fight and recover at the same time. He was like a cockroach that could not be killed. Ning Chaofan's loss was not unjustified. Ning Chaofan felt that he had picked up a treasure and was even a little proud. A dual-soul warrior's cultivation speed was much faster than a single-soul warrior's. Qin Hao would definitely make a name for himself in the future. As his disciple, Ning Chaofan felt very honored. I'm going to have to remove the arrow from your leg. It might hurt a lot, but you have to bear with it. If you're afraid, close your eyes, Qin Hao said without delay. Qin Hao was unable to treat the arrow that was lodged in her leg. Once the wound healed, it would be embedded in K.Er's flesh. Okay, and nodded obediently. The quality of the golden arrow was extremely high. With Qin Hao's current ability, it was obvious that he could not forcefully cut it apart. He had to forcefully pull out. The arrowhead had a barb, and when it was pulled out, it would take away a large piece of flesh from the leg. Of course, Kair knew that it was very painful, but there was nothing she could do. Ning Chaofan, come here, Qin Hao called out. Teacher, I'm here. Ning Chaofan hurriedly squatted down. Qin Hao grabbed one of Ning Chaofan's arms and pulled him in front of Kair. With a gentle look on his face, he said, "If it hurts, bite his hand." Teacher, you can't do that, right? Ning Chaofan tried to bluff as he hurriedly tried to stand up. Wasn't this cheating his disciple? Kair was a magical beast, and her bite strength was astonishing. What could he do if she bit off his arm? What's wrong? You're not willing to contribute a hand? Qin Hao rolled his eyes. No. That's not what your disciple meant. I have a pair of large scissors in my ring. I've comprehended it from the 5th Divine Soldier platform. You've seen it for yourself. It's very durable. Give me your hand obediently. The large scissors are too hard. They'll hurt my teeth. I won't feel good if she bites them. Qin Hao did not allow Ning Chaofan to refuse. Oh, all right, Ning Chaofan said bitterly. Miss Kair, I've been pampered since I was young. My skin is soft and tender. I hope you'll be gentler when you bite me. Shut up. I'm going to pull out the arrow. Qin Hao scolded. Kair immediately closed her eyes. Her nerves were tense as she grabbed Ning Chaofan's arm with both hands, ready to bite him at any moment. Ning Chaofan also closed his eyes. His eyebrows were furrowed as he turned his head to the side. He did not dare to look at what had happened to his arm. However, the process of pulling out the arrow was very quick and painless. When Qin Hao's hand touched the golden arrow, it was enveloped in a layer of silver. It flowed through Qin Hao's fingers like mercury and entered his body. It did not hurt Kair at all. Qin Hao was stunned. He smiled faintly as he thought about it. The 12-wing battlesuit had recognized him as its master. The arrow was part of the suit. Of course, it would act according to its master's thoughts, even if it was only passive. What a treasure. Qin Hao stroked his chin. He could not help but think of the crimson arrow. The crimson arrow understood Qin Hao's intentions better than the golden arrow. This was because it had given birth to an artifact spirit. In the future, it would be similar to a dragon spirit. However, the crimson arrow had always been attached to Xiao Han and not Qin Hao. He wondered how Qin Hao was doing and where exactly she had fallen in the mystic realm. She was actually able to block the connection between the crimson arrow and Qin Hao. Brother-in-law, are you done? O's voice rang out, interrupting Qin Hao. Oh, I'm done. Qin Hao came back to his senses. What? Is it over? Why don't I feel any pain? Opened her eyes and saw that the golden arrow had indeed disappeared from her leg. Furthermore, Qin Hao had brushed a strand of tranquil water over it. The wound had healed quickly and did not even leave a scar. Kair's calf was smooth and even whiter than ivory. Isn't brother-in-law awesome? Qin Hao rubbed his nose proudly as he helped Kair to her feet. He saw that Ning Chaofan still had his eyes closed and his head turned to the side. His neck was about to break, so Qin Hao kicked him. Take 2 steps and see, Qin Hao said as he released his grip on her. Okay. Kair nodded and carefully walked forward. As her right foot touched the ground, a trace of pain appeared on her face. Fortunately, it was not very painful. Her leg had probably just recovered and was not used to it. It's fine now. Thank you, brother-in-law. Qin Hao pinched Kair's little face and said dotingly, You're already calling me brother-in-law. What are you thanking me for? You should be able to fully recover after resting for 2 days. Woof, 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 woof. Brother Dog's frantic barks rang out from the spatial ring. When Xiao Han had been around, Qin Hao and Xiao Han had been intimate. Now that Xiao Han was not around, Brother Dog had actually hooked up with his sister-in-law and even wanted to torture him. This was too much. Qin Hao chose to ignore Brother Dog's dissatisfaction. Teacher, since you have the ability to heal, can you also? Ning Chaofan pointed at the subordinate in black. At some point, the subordinate in black had already knelt at Qin Hao's feet and was clutching his abdomen with one hand. Blood was flowing between his fingers, and he was in so much pain that his face was covered in beads of sweat. Elixirs could restore one's vitality, recover one's physical strength, and even help a martialist break through. However, there were no elixirs that could heal wounds in a short time. At the Yuan Venerate level, one's physical body was different from that of ordinary people and low-level martialists. The medicines sold in medicine stores were simply useless. At the moment, the martialist in black was looking at Qin Hao with a pleading gaze, hoping that he could help him. Bang! Qin Hao struck the subordinate in black with his palm. A blue ball of water burst forth from his palm and blasted his abdomen. Qin Hao could be very gentle with K.R. The subordinate in black didn't have a right to enjoy Denda's gentleness. This slave had mocked Qin Hao time and time again on Coiling Dragon Peak. Letting him suffer a little was already letting him off easy. Therefore, this palm strike sent the subordinate in black flying 10 meters into the air before he crashed heavily. Teacher you. Ning Chao Fan was shocked. He had personally witnessed how powerful Qin Hao's palm strike was. Even the Lion Palace couldn't withstand it. The subordinate in black was barely alive. Even if he hadn't been injured, this palm strike would have been enough to send him to hell. Please remember the domain name of this book, Nine Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Edition website. Chapter 1223. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations entering the Divine Temple. This palm strike was powerful enough to kill a peak Yuan Venerate, but it wasn't powerful enough. The serene tranquil water was forcefully injected into the black-robed martialist's body and circulated through his meridians, speeding up the healing process. By the time he landed on the ground, his internal injuries were mostly healed and his mental state was better than before. The hole in his abdomen had also completely healed. Wonderful! Ning Chao Fan exclaimed in amazement. Thank you, great master, for saving my life. I am eternally grateful. The black-robed subordinate bowed respectfully, not daring to show any disrespect. Qin Hao couldn't be bothered with him. Instead, he scanned the battlefield. Everyone was trying their best to regulate their breathing. Less than 20 people had survived, including Qin Hao's team, the old man with the broken sword, and the coffin bearer. A team of more than 50 Yuan Venerates was left with less than half of them. The word miserable wasn't enough to describe it. However, this showed the advantage of Qin Hao's team. If Ning Chao Fan and the black-robe subordinate were of the same mind as him, together with F.A. Xiong and Brother Dog, they would definitely have the capital to compete for the great Empress inheritance. Based on Ning Chao Fan's attitude, this kid had already steeled his heart to follow Qin Hao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stepped in to save Kair at a critical moment, even at the expense of his own life. Brother-in-law, you have expended a lot of energy, yet you still treated me. Hurry up and rest. Kair said. Qin Hao shook his head. With a sweep of his palm, he stored the equipment of the Lion Palace into his spatial ring. There is no time. As soon as he said that, the old man with the broken sword, the coffin bearer, and the rest of the martialists stopped regulating their breathing and collected their spoils of war before standing up. The old man with the broken sword had obtained 2 complete sets of gold-grade equipment, while the coffin bearer had obtained 1. The rest of the people didn't get a balanced distribution. Some people got a wrist guard, some were lucky enough to get a breastplate, and some unlucky ones got half a pair of boots. Then, they all gathered in the center of the courtyard. Although this battle was a close shave and there were many casualties, the benefits were also great, the old man with the broken sword said as he looked at Qin Hao. Imperceptibly, Qin Hao went from being an inconspicuous Yuan king to occupying an important position in the team that could not be ignored. That's right, some people got lucky again. They actually defeated the Sagittarius Palace, the only one who could fly, and even obtained a full set of flying equipment. The coffin bearer's words were sarcastic, hinting at Qin Hao. What AF * king smelly fart? It's going to kill me. The black-clothed martial artist hurriedly covered his nose his tone extremely disrespectful towards the coffin-carrying man. "Are you tired of living?" The coffin-carrying man glared at him. The old man with the broken sword raised his hand and shook his head at him. The war had just ended, so it was not good to split up. Moreover, the gate of the temple had not been broken. Qin Hao and Ning Chao Fan were still useful. Oomph. The coffin-bearer carried his pitch-black coffin and left angrily. He walked towards the gate of the temple behind Yuanjing Mountain. The other martial artists followed him one by one. They couldn't be bothered to look at the courtyard full of corpses. Those who had died were a bunch of weaklings who didn't deserve any sympathy. Qin Hao, on the other hand, bowed towards the empty courtyard and then chased after them with K.Er and Ning Chao Fan. Although the 12 Zodiac's warriors were made up of armor, their desire to protect their masters was worthy of Denda's admiration. Moreover, there was one thing that Qin Hao couldn't figure out. When he destroyed the Sagittarius Temple and the Leo Temple, it made sense that the spiritual energy had turned into energy and surged towards him. Why would the spiritual energy enter his body after others defeated the Golden Warriors? Moreover, the equipment scattered all over the ground was not worn by the opponents who defeated them. This meant that even if they had obtained the equipment of the Ares Temple, the Horizontal Palace, and the Taurus Temple, the old man with the broken sword and the coffin-carrying man were not recognized and were not the owners of the equipment. Although he wasn't sure, it wasn't a bad thing for Qin Hao. The group of people stood in front of the gate of the temple. The gate was huge, even grander than the iron gate that guarded the courtyard. It was almost 20 meters tall and 8 meters wide. It was majestic and imposing, and their bodies seemed very small. At this moment, the dancers were all very excited and a little uneasy. If the gate opened and another group of golden warriors came out of the temple, it would be a disaster. Although the golden equipment was precious, even a wrist guard could be said to be priceless. One had to be alive to take it. Therefore, standing in front of the gate, they knew that there was an emperor-level inheritance inside. However, the pressure on the warriors had increased by hundreds and thousands of times. Many of them began to silently break out in cold sweat. This gate is incomparably dark and has an indestructible luster. Let me try it. No one dared to make a move. The coffin-carrying man relied on his high cultivation and smashed the gate with the coffin. Bang! There was a deafening sound, and the gate was smashed so violently that it emitted light. The coffin-carrying man realized that something was wrong. Chapter 1224. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo, Studio the key to the door. After taking 2 steps, Ning Chaofan's legs turned to jelly. He turned around and said, "Master, you should come with me. I'll feel more secure this way." Useless. Qin Hao cursed under his breath as he pulled K.Er forward. In this life, he had taken in a bunch of cowardly disciples. Jiang Fan from the northern borderline and Ning Chao Fan, the playboy from the southern mountain range, were nothing compared to the 4 great generals in his previous life. However, among these disciples, Qin Hao was most satisfied with the 5th disciple. K.Er's injuries were more severe, and she was still limping as she walked. She had to stay with him, and this was to prevent the old man with the broken sword from suddenly attacking K.Er and threatening Qin Hao. Denda was very meticulous. When they arrived at the door, Qin Hao and Ning Chao Fan looked up and down at the same time. This 20-meter-tall door was mixed with a desolate aura. It was obvious that it had been there for a long time. Moreover, there was a formation on its surface that was several times stronger than the iron door in the courtyard. The formation's grade was frighteningly high. Use your scissors to scratch it. Remember, don't use too much force and be careful of the backlash. Penetrate it bit by bit. We'll talk after we figure out the material of the door. Qin Hao instructed. Ning Chaofan nodded and took out the frost iron scissors that he had learned from Pan Long Peak. It was a mid-level honorable artifact. He held the scissors and followed the instructions. He carefully pressed it against the door and slashed with all his might. Chi! Sparks appeared and a strong backlash came. Ning Chaofan was caught off guard and took a few steps back, almost falling to the ground. However, This slash had cut through the surface, revealing the material inside the door. From the slash, there was a glimmer of starlight. Star steel, star steel. Qin Hao and Ning Chao Fan exclaimed at the same time. Their voices were filled with shock. The door of the divine temple was made of star steel. Its value was no less than that of 10,000-year-old frost iron. The person who made such a huge piece of star steel was very generous. They did not know how thick it was. Brother-in-law, is this star steel powerful? Okay. Pointed at the door. It's not just powerful. Based on my current cultivation level, I can't break it at all. Also, take a look. Qin Hao's palm slid across the door like clear water, creating a ripple under his palm. The ripple was very strong. This is an array formation. The degree of fluctuation is more than 10 times stronger than the 36 Big Dipper star array, although I don't know what kind of array it is. However, its grade is undoubtedly the Emperor grade. Emperor grade, Great Array. It originated from the array Emperor. Also, pay attention to your current expression. Don't show any anger. Put on a thoughtful expression. Everyone is looking at you. Li Wanji said telepathically. Thump. Qin Hao's heart skipped a beat. He immediately put his hand on his chin. His anger turned into a thoughtful expression. He nodded and shook his head. In front of everyone, he paced back and forth in front of the temple. Damn, you're a natural-born best actor. Li Wanji scolded. Enough. Hurry up and tell me how to break the door. If anything happens to Han, and the old demon, I will drag you out even if my soul is destroyed. I will take you down with me, you bastard. The strength of my soul is something you've seen for yourself. Qin Hao replied inwardly. Big brother, I didn't do anything wrong to you. You don't have to be so ruthless, right? Li Wanji had indeed seen it. He did not doubt Qin Hao's ability. He coughed and said, Ahem, now let's talk about how to break the door. Didn't you find a key in the Divine Soldier platform? There must be a keyhole on the door. Or maybe the keyhole is blocked by dust. Look carefully. That key is the key to opening the door. You're not lying to me? No, when my soul goes berserk, even I am afraid. I don't know if this space can withstand it. Big brother, trust me. When your soul goes berserk, I'm King afraid too. Li Wanji begged. If it weren't for something else, he would have come to open the door himself. Those gold equipment wouldn't have fallen into Qin Hao's hands. Li Wanji was thinking about how to ask Qin Hao for a set of equipment to study. After all, those equipment were far more complicated than refining equipment. They contained the most powerful enchantments on the continent. Compared to Empress Xian Tian, Li Wanji's enchantments were not at the same level. He had been guarding the coiling dragon peak and looking for someone to open the hidden dragon's secret realm in order to get Empress Xian Tian's enchantment book. Okay, I believe you, Qin Hao replied in his mind. In front of everyone, he put on an expression of sudden realization. He patted his head and said, Why didn't I think of that? It's so easy to break the door. Master, you found a way. Everyone was so surprised that they couldn't help but take a few steps toward Qin Hao. Even the broken sword elder and the coffin bearers were afraid that Qin Hao would suddenly open the door and rush in to take the Empress inheritance. Don't come over. Let me think carefully. Ning Chao Fan, come and help me. Qin Hao shouted and squatted in front of the door. His shout stopped everyone in their tracks. They didn't dare to come any closer. Yes, master. Ning Chao Fan walked back and squatted beside Qin Hao. Chapter 1225. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio. Half an hour was enough. The old man with the broken sword was confused. He knew that the Emperor-level array was not easy to break. However, he did not dare to disturb him. If Qin Hao really had a strange idea to break the array, it would be a loss if he got in the way. After all, Qin Hao was the only authority in this place when it came to arrays. Master, don't tell me you want to kill the old man with the broken sword and the coffin bearers. Ning Chao Fan whispered. Look at you. Do I look like that kind of person? Qin Hao said angrily. You don't look like that. I think you are that kind of person. Smack. Qin Hao slapped Ning Chao Fan on the head. You dare to talk back? I was wrong, master. Shut up. I do have a way to open the door. Do you remember the stupid key I comprehended at the Divine Soldier platform? As he spoke, Qin Hao secretly took out a rusty and moldy old key and pinched it under Ning Chao Fan's nose. Could it be? Ning Chao Fan took a deep breath and looked at the door. Qin Hao immediately pulled Ning Chao Fan's head back. Keep your voice down. That's right. Is the key to this door the only key? This. Ning Chao Fan fell silent. He looked a little awkward as he stared at the key in Qin Hao's hand. Previously, he had greatly mocked Qin Hao because of this key. Who would have thought that this trashy thing was the only token to open the Emperor-level inheritance? For more than 800 years, many geniuses and experts in the southern region had tried to comprehend the Panlong Peak, but no one had obtained this token. Unfortunately, Qin Hao had obtained it. It seems that this is fate. Master's talent is unparalleled in the world. I am convinced. In that case, please open the door. Ning Chao Fan said impatiently. Are you out of your mind? If we open the door now, do you think we can snatch the inheritance from Broken Sword Old Man? Qin Hao slapped Ning Chao Fan's head again. This. Ning Chao Fan suddenly felt a chill run down his back. He admitted his mistake and said, it was this disciple's fault. That's right. Even if he joined forces with Qin Hao, they wouldn't be able to defeat the old man with a broken sword. Opening the door now was equivalent to giving away the inheritance of the great empress. The old man with the broken sword fought with the 2 warriors from the 12 zodiac temples. His cultivation had risen to the 5th layer of the Monarch realm, and he was incomparably terrifying. To put it in a more depressing way, competing with him for the inheritance was equivalent to giving away one's head. Just the coffin bearers alone could trample them to death as easily as stepping on grasshoppers. Then what should we do? Ning Chao Fan frowned. They couldn't afford to waste time, could they? The secret realm could disappear at any time. Let me ask you, can you withstand the coffin-carrying man's attack? Qin Hao asked seriously. I really want to beat you to death right now. You're a branch of the Ning Wu royal family, but you don't have any backbone. Where's your courage? Where's the dignity of the Ning Wu royal family? Is the coffin-carrying man very strong? Okay, maybe on the surface, he can crush you. But have you thought about it? When he broke open the big iron gate of the courtyard, I used up almost 80% of his spiritual power. When one's spiritual power is used up, it affects the speed at which one gathers energy, weakens one's combat ability and movements, and makes them slow and clumsy. The coffin-carrying man used up a lot of his spiritual power in the battle with the Taurus Palace. Even though he barely defeated the Taurus Palace when they were weak, the amount of spiritual power stored in his Dantian is probably less than yours. In other words, he's a 3rd-level Monarch rank expert. It's already not bad that he can display the power of a 1st-level Monarch rank expert. What are you afraid of? Qin Hao reprimanded. That's right. He was beaten into a pig's head by the Taurus Palace. His body was injured in many places. Even though he recovered for a while, it's impossible for him to fully recover. Ning Chao Fan suddenly gained confidence. If he was fighting a coffin-carrying man who wasn't in his best condition, then it shouldn't be a problem to hold on for half an hour. It's good that you understand. Also, don't underestimate Kit. She's injured, but she's smarter than you. She hasn't used her peacock plume yet. You should want to see the spectacular scene of the peacock plume piercing the coffin-carrying man, right? Ha ha ha. Qin Hao couldn't help but laugh. Beside him, pouted in dissatisfaction. Why did he have to reveal his trump card? All right, teacher. I'm now confident that I can withstand the coffin-carrying man's beatings for half an hour. During this time, I won't let him affect you. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll protect Miss K.R. like a turtle shell and not let her get hurt. Ning Chao Fan felt the blood in his body begin to boil. He even had thoughts of defeating the coffin-carrying man. If he was lucky enough to defeat a martial emperor and an essence soul cultivator at that, it would be enough for him to brag about for half a year. You're a promising child. Of course, I won't completely ignore all of you during this half an hour. I still have an even more powerful trump card in my hands. I'll surprise you when you least expect it. Qin Hao patted Ning Chaofan's shoulder heavily. His consciousness shrouded the door as he searched for the keyhole. An even more powerful trump card? Ning Chaofan was shocked. Could it be that Qin Hao hadn't revealed his full strength yet? Oh my god, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.